Prologue, Blood Moon Territory, Palace Halls. 11 years ago. Sarah, I'm going to get you. The 6-year-old prince's voice echoed through the vast halls as he chased after his twin sister, struggling to keep up with her agility. Being the only male among the siblings, catching her was a challenge, even among their friends. Outrunning her seemed impossible. Her laughter responded, "No, you won't, Slowpoke." But her triumphant run came to an end when one of their friends, Eldrick, tackled her to the ground, followed by a groan. Eldrick, the future beta, had caught up with the young princess. "Gotcha," Eldrick proclaimed. "Kin," Sarah protested, using her strength to push Eldrick off of her. Her remarkable agility and strength at such a young age surpassed the male pups. As the heir to the throne, her prowess was expected. Ow! Anakin rubbed his chest where she pushed him off, feeling the impact. He glared at his future led Luna. "We got you now, Sarah. Thought you'd get away, did you?" Anakin sat up, holding Sarah's wrists to prevent her escape. She struggled to break free. "Yeah, you think you'd get away from what you did to my face? I looked ridiculous in front of Zara, little cuz," a disgruntled Ares pouted. Lyra finally caught up and joined them, sitting down beside Sarah. He had a smug look on his face, despite the pink and purple makeup on his pale skin. "Oh yeah, you couldn't even catch up with me, fatty," Sarah retorted, ripping Anakin's hold and running off again. She looked back and playfully stuck her tongue out. "You can't catch me." "Hey sis, wait." Lyra frowned at her comment but couldn't catch up. He was too slow. "Sarah, come back here, you little." Sarah covered her ears teasingly, blocking their protests. Her legs led her to her father's study, and as she closed the door, she bumped into someone, landing on the floor. "Ow." "Sarah, what are you doing here?" a concerned voice asked as she rubbed her aching butt. "Getting away from Lyra, Kin, and Ares," Sarah muttered under her breath. Her mother, the lead Luna, lifted her up and settled her in a chair opposite her. Ari, the lead Luna, crossed her legs and smiled knowingly at her eldest daughter. She was a striking woman with ginger red hair and golden cat eyes, a sign of her association with the lead alpha Alara. "I'm guessing this is because of your morning prank." Ari shook her head and chuckled lightly. Sarah's clever tricks and pranks were undoubtedly inherited from her. Or should I say evening prank? Ari tilted her head, seeing Sarah's features shift to shock. "How did you even manage to send his guard away from his bedroom last night?" She positioned Sarah on her lap, pushing her hair aside. "Mama, what?" Sarah's golden eyes widened in disbelief. How did her mother even know what she did the night before? "I saw you sneaking into his room last night without his guard, little vixen." Sarah grinned, revealing her recent scheme. "I told Wes that Zara was looking for him since he likes her a lot. And since I managed to steal your makeup set, and Lyra is a heavy sleeper, it was a piece of cake." Ari raised her eyebrow at Sarah's bluntness. How did she not notice her makeup set missing? Before Ari could respond, she felt a nudge in the corner of her mind. "Where are you?" Alara contacted her through their link. "The study." "Why?" He didn't reply. She knew something was bothering Alara, and he was on his way to the study. She kissed Sarah's head before standing. "Come on and get your books from the library. I'll be with you after I speak with your father." "Yes, Mama." She ruffled Sarah's head before leaving through another door, just as Alara entered. As Sarah closed the door, she heard Alara slam something against the table, followed by a crack. She recoiled at the sound and moved away from the door. "Calm down, Ilara. Tell me, what's bothering you?" Ari's soft voice reached her ears. Sarah left quietly, careful not to alert her brother and their friends. As she walked, she furrowed her brow, wondering what could be troubling her father. Was it the rogue attacks on the Blood Moon territory again, or perhaps Pax seeking challenges against the Lead Alpha? She passed her younger sister's door, and, sensing she was there, her sister opened the door and called for her. "Big sissy, where are you going?" Her sister, still in her pajamas, had ginger red hair similar to their mother's, all over the place. Sarah tried not to laugh at the sight. "Library. Mama and I are going to study," she explained before looking around. "In your pajamas?" her little sister asked in a small voice. She winked at her. "Had to give your big brother and Lyra and Ares a makeover." "Listen, I need to go before they see me, so see you." She walked off and followed the direction to the library. She chuckled, "Bye," before her sister's door closed. On her way to the library, she abruptly heard a scream from downstairs. She wouldn't have heard it without her enhanced hearing. Before taking off to where the scream came from, someone wrapped their arms around her, pulling her into a darker corner of the corridor. She turned to look at her captor, but before she could even catch a glimpse, she turned her head back to where she heard her mother's voice shouting for her twin brother, Lyra. "Where are you?" "Mom, I'm here," her brother screamed. She tried to call out to her mother, but a cloth covered her mouth and nose, filling her senses with an odd scent. "Where's your sister?" The last thing she heard was her twin brother and mother crying out her name. "Sarah, sis, Seraphina." Chapter 1, Lone Wolf, Everest Hills, Weist's Bar, present, Amelia. The foul aroma of alcohol filled my senses when I rushed out of my now former manager's office. Thankfully, he had considered letting me finish tonight after accepting my resignation from yesterday. I received my final paycheck after my last shift. It would be enough to pay for the apartment's rental fee this month. Weist's Bar was completely occupied with warm, alcohol-filled bodies. Strippers were entertaining the guests at the bottom of the stage, and I could see one of my colleagues serving drinks table to table. I had no intention of bidding my farewells, as none of them would even care to see me out or shed tears. I was here for exactly 3 weeks, not enough time to try and actually get along with egocentric bitches. Yes, the majority of them were women. The speakers resounded from the corner of the walls, and I nearly covered my ears in annoyance. I can never understand how people would even enjoy loudness that vibrated the walls and unceasingly sway their hips as they dance skin to skin with strangers they never even met. I have come across a few men who only thought of their male organ, and they would self-assuredly grip their hands onto my waist. None of them got away with it since I, most of the time, introduce them with my fist, and normally I'd be called into the office for scaring the customers off. Speaking of pig-headed and perverted customers, a few that passed by winked and started blabbering about making me scream and beg for more to his friends. I had to give him the deadliest glare I could give before they cowered and proceeded on looking for other women instead. I let out an exasperated sigh once I walked through the exit where Jay was standing. He was someone that I could actually endure compared to my other co-workers, and he was about 16 years my senior. "Done with your shift, Amelia?" The tone in his voice was in a teasing way. Okay, I can barely tolerate his presence. One thing I detested was when he'd purposely pronounce my name erroneously, causing me to irascibly punch his shoulder hard. He released a grunt and a light chuckle afterward as he rubbed the sore part. "Always the violent one, Amelia." I rolled my eyes at him. The strap of the backpack I've been carrying ever since I strolled out of the office began to sting, so I adjusted it from my shoulder. "You'll never get that correctly, will you?" In response, he shook his head as he beamed at me with those yellowish teeth of his. "Actually, it is my last shift. See you around town, Jay." I flipped my hair dramatically, to which he lightly chuckled and walled off as I ventured to the bus station. When I was a few meters away, I heard him call out, "Hey, Amelia." My lips slowly curved into a smile. I cocked my head to the side. "I thought you'd never ever call Amelia." "Did I? Nice try. Go on a date with me." I shook my head to the side once more before I turned to face him. "Not a chance, Grandpa." "Hey, I am not that old." I snorted at that. "Yeah, right." I gave him the finger as I turned my back to him. "But old enough to be my father," I called out. He laughed inwardly. Aside from that, I heard no more reply coming from him. Finally, I caught the bus just in time. The ride home took around 45 minutes, including the walk from the bus stop. I fiddled with the keys in my hand as I took the stairs up to the second floor of the apartment. I hummed a soft tune I heard from the radio once. I stood on my ground when I was already in front of my door before slipping the key inside the keyhole. The apartment was relatively smaller than what we had with Aunt Neve. Her house only had 1 floor, but it consisted of 3 bedrooms, a restroom, a dining room connected to the kitchen, and finally a living room that was at least 4 by 5 meters larger than ours. In total, our apartment now was 5 by 6 meters, including the small bedroom and the restroom. The kitchen, the dining room, and the living room are all connected. From the door, Lily, the nanny who was in charge of Iris, was draped over the only couch that we had. Exhaustion was apparent in her face by means of how she slept soundly. The door of the bedroom was shut, with the knowledge of Iris safe and probably sleeping. I could hear her soft intake of breaths from here. I placed the backpack on the kitchen counter and removed the shoes that I had on. I soundlessly stooped down beside Lily and lightly tapped her shoulder. "Lily." Her brown eyes fluttered open before they settled to me. She reached out and rubbed her eyes as she got a clearer view of who was in front of her. She quickly sat up and fixed her messy hair. "Miss, sorry I fell asleep." I gave her a small smile. Despite the number of times I told her to stop calling me Miss, she refuses to call me by my name. She said it wasn't formal in spite of our age difference, and I am certainly not the older one here. "Forgive me for arriving late." Lily, I reached out to the small pocket of my leggings and handed her over her fill. Here, do you wish to stay for the night? Oh no, that won't be necessary, miss. Thank you. I watched her pack her things before she left through the apartment door. I went to the restroom to inspect myself in the mirror. I had a draining night, and the white side of my eyes already was filled with red veins. My face was deeply flushed, and my frizzy chestnut hair was sticking to my skin because of my sweat. I washed my hands before removing the hazel-colored contacts I was wearing. Once I turned my gaze back to the mirror, I could see the golden hue of my eyes. It was a common trait that Aunt Maeve, Iris, and I had. Our eyes will cost us our lives. We just escaped Amelia. We can't let them catch us once more. She told me when I was 9. What she told me was true. Somehow, someone saw me when I had forgotten to wear the contacts I was provided with. Aunt Maeve died protecting us. That was almost 8 years ago. She died because of me. She died 2 years after that conversation we had. I saw my eyes turn gray and the white of my eyes darkening. I clenched my fists to the side and controlled my inner wolf. Not now, I told her. I took deep breaths before she returned to the back of my consciousness. The moment I stepped out of the bathroom, I noticed the gray envelope that was lying on top of the small living room table. Lily must have placed it there. I sat on the couch and ripped the cover. Gray envelopes came from the Werewolf Council. The last time I saw one of those was about a few years ago, informing me that they listed both Iris and me as lone wolves. Wolves that weren't kicked out of a pack, but nonetheless, not even part of one. The council keeps track of all the werewolves excluding rogues, so that included Iris and me. I don't know where they get their sources from, and how they were able to track both of us. Maybe they caught our scent the moment we stepped foot into another town. The council has this gift of sensing a wolf when they see one, while the rest of the werewolves can only know through physical contact. I pulled out 5 components from the envelope. The first one was a letter. I scanned through the letter and carefully read the whole thing. The Werewolf Council declared a law that every werewolf under and at the age of 18 must attend the nearest school. It also indicated that all expenses are taken care of excluding our commuting costs to and from school. The other 2 consisted of proof that I was enrolled in Everest High School, and Iris was enrolled in Hillside Kindergarten. The maps of the schools were at the bottom. At least our schools were only 5 minutes away from each other. The remaining components consisted of our school permits. School starts on Monday, and by that time, I'll have to look for the nearest cafe to work for. Well, this was a quick turn. I'll have to balance the time I have for both school and work. I placed the components back into the envelope and entered the bedroom. I changed into my night clothes and quietly neared the bed in the middle of the room. Iris was curled in a fetal position, the blanket up to her waist, and her right hand gripped the cover of the pillow on her head. I sighed in relief and climbed into bed beside her, turning the headlamp off. I felt Iris move beside me, and her tired golden eyes looked into mine. Hey, her soft voice rang through my ears. I brought my hand to the side of her cheek and slipped her hair to the side of her ear. Did you read the letter? She asked softly. So it was she who placed it there. Yeah, we have school on Monday. Who would have known that we both have to attend school? I chuckled half-heartedly. We'll have to buy our school supplies tomorrow. I know, I can't wait. She bit her lip nervously. What is it? I asked, concerned, scared, not knowing what it would be like. I gave her a small smile and kissed her forehead. You'll be okay? If only Aunt Maeve was here, she would know what to do. Chapter 2, New School, Everest Heights, Amelia's living space. Now, Amelia, ready to roll? Absolutely. Iris's response was buoyant, with a fun twist on the final Y. I grabbed the backpack from the chair and took a moment to see my reflection in the mirror. Dressed in my pristine white long-sleeved top, jeans that reached my ankles, and matching white sneakers, I felt ready. My rich brown hair was neatly intertwined with slight tendrils loosely framing my face. The dash of eyeliner accentuated the faux hazel shade of my contacts. Glancing at Iris, I remarked, "Your contacts." She caught my cue and looked directly into my eyes, just as I did to hers. Relieved to see her brown contacts in place, I sighed. Exposure was a risk we couldn't afford. You've got your lunch money, haven't you? You already asked, Amelia, she retorted, feigning indifference. Just double-checking, Iris. She held back a sharp reply, biting her lower lip, knowing I had a point. The bus journey to Hillside Kindergarten took roughly a quarter of an hour. Handing Iris her school ID, I waved her goodbye and began my short walk to Everest Secondary School. Before I knew it, I was standing at the main entrance. A quick peek at my wristwatch told me it was almost 9. The leather was showing signs of age, though it had faithfully ticked on with periodic battery changes. Navigating my way, I soon found myself headed towards the administrative office. The murmurs of students filling the air. Their whispers piqued my curiosity as they questioned my identity and presence. New girl, part of that new law. Ever seen her before? The mention of pack wolves made me hasten my steps. Rogues, free from council jurisdiction, were unlikely to be at school, but packs, that was another story. Reaching the front desk, a friendly-looking middle-aged woman, adorned with a silver pin, greeted me with a warm smile. Disconnecting her call, she asked, "How may I assist you?" Feeling a little awkward, I stammered, "Here's my school pass." Handing it to her, I waited. "Your name?" "Amelia Lake." She rummaged through some documents, made a few keyboard strokes, and soon handed me a handful of essentials. "Here's your timetable, introductory note, campus guide, and locker key. Blue lockers in the Saturn Hall, C13. Your books are inside. Present your note to each teacher. Have a splendid day." I responded with a silent nod of appreciation, adjusting my hair that had started to unravel. Exiting the office, I collided with a sturdy figure, causing me to drop my belongings. "Oh, I'm so sorry," a masculine voice apologized. I bent down to retrieve my things, our eyes meeting for a split second. His remorseful look surprised me. "Helios," he introduced himself, extending the locker key. "Amelia," I replied, feeling a peculiar sensation when our hands brushed. "Werewolf," he stated. The word resonated with something within me, and our shared realization spoke volumes. "You're a lone wolf." His observation stunned me. As I turned to leave, his soft utterance of my name held a depth of meaning. After organizing my books in my new locker, I made my way to English class B4. Upon entering, all eyes fixated on me. A mixture of curiosity and disdain. The silver-spectacled teacher introduced me as Amelia Lake and guided me to sit next to Jax, who promptly introduced himself. As the lesson began, Jax's comment about female werewolves being unable to transform left me rattled, but I exited the class before he could question me further. Lunchtime arrived after 2 more classes. The clamor of the cafeteria was nearly unbearable. As I procured a sandwich and headed outside, whispers about the lone wolf followed me. Choosing solitude over scrutiny, I climbed a pine tree and began my meal. Unexpectedly, 2 voices above startled me, leading to a quirky introduction with Anakin and Casper. Their reactions to the mysterious link we shared were palpable. As I narrated a whimsical story to break the tension, their quizzical expressions suggested this school year would be anything but ordinary. Chapter 3. Shifters, Everest Peaks High School. Today, Amelia. Euphoria. No, euphoria like intense joy. She's Euphoria Livingston Atherton, the lead alpha's mate, which makes her the lead Luna of the werewolves, blood moon territory. Don't tell me you don't know this. I blinked at him, trying to keep up. Seems I don't, Anakin remarked, seeing my confusion. He clicked his fingers in front of my face, only for me to still stare blankly. Lead alpha, lead Luna. They're basically the royalty of the werewolves, the king and queen if you will. But we say lead alpha and lead Luna. And you just said that out loud, he mentioned as I processed his words, my mouth slightly open in realization. I recall hearing something about blood moon territory. Picking up my sandwich, I took a bite, mulling over his words. But I thought the Werewolf Council ruled the packs. Casper intervened. The council works under the leads. They're mostly messengers and planners. It's the lead alpha and Luna that make the big calls. He looked at me, awaiting my reaction. You know, the new law that brought you here. The one where every werewolf up to age 18 must go to the nearest school. I retorted, drawing a chuckle from him. Indeed. Whew, that's a lot to absorb. Anakin, curious, tilted his head. How do you not know this? Avoiding the real answer, I merely shrugged. Memories flooded back. Aunt Maeve, our escape, her last words, run, Amelia, find Alara before she handed my baby cousin Iris to me, and urged me to flee. The school bell interrupted my reverie. I quickly finished my sandwich. Both Anakin and Casper were offering to help me down from our perch, but without waiting, I leaped. Landing smoothly, I smirked at their shocked expressions. How did you even? I can't believe a girl just. Sexist much? I shot back, arms crossed. They looked at each other, then back to me. Most female werewolves might break a bone doing that. Sure, they heal quickly, but their bones aren't as strong. I dismissed their concerns with a wave. Got to go. As I walked away, Anakin shouted, Hey, we didn't get your name. I teased. Rapunzel. They responded with amusement. I finally relented. It's Amelia Lake. And my number. Try looking up your rear end. I took off, mindful not to display my supernatural speed, and barely avoided a tardy in my next class. After school, relief washed over me as I found Iris waiting. Amelia, she greeted me with a warm hug. So, how was school? I asked as we strolled to the bus stop. Iris responded with her own cheeky grin. Same question to you. I playfully messed up her hair in response. Later, at Ren's Coffee Hub and Cafe, the local hotspot, I was taking orders when familiar faces showed up. Draven and his friends. One in particular caught my eye with his piercing blue gaze, stirring unexpected feelings. I tried to remain professional, but their presence was distracting. As I headed home later, reflecting on the day, I felt an odd sensation. I turned to see a shadowy figure that vanished the moment I tried to focus on it. Might have been my mind playing tricks on me. Chapter 4. Encounter. Everest Hills. Everest Woods. Now, Amelia. The chilly wind of the evening pierced through my snow-white fur, thick with insulation. As I moved forward, my paws struck the mud-laden terrain, while my pace led me across the landscape, the sight of the trees passing in a haze. An amalgamation of various smells invaded my senses, the most dominant of them being the dampness of rain, the distinct scent of pine, and the fish-like smell of the nearby lake. My wolf, Seraphina, took over with glee, her movements agile as she zigzagged her way, flaunting her adeptness. She momentarily paused at the edge of a pack's territory. Their shared scent led me to recognize them as the same pack that Jax, Vaughn, and AT belonged to. She studied the vacant space attentively. I could envision our silvery eyes reflecting the moonlight above us, partially concealed by the foliage. Our eyes would change to shades of gray and black only when Seraphina senses threat and negativity. A third of the pack's territory was forested, but, as I anticipated, every corner of this area was under vigilance. Therefore, when a twig snapped and a human scent reached me from a distance, I swiftly arose and moved away from the boundary. Halt! It isn't a rogue, a familiar voice echoed from afar. A solitary wolf. The words of the other man were indistinct. What is it doing near a pack's boundary? Who knows? Dirt clung to my white fur as Seraphina guided us to the adjacent lake. She bent her head to quench her thirst. The lake, imbued with shades of blue and green, had pebbles scattered along its shore. The cold water slithered down my throat, alleviating my hunger. The semi-full moon's reflection could be observed on the lake's surface, undisturbed by wind, fish, or any other disruptions. I found myself thinking about Iris, and guilt washed over me for leaving her alone. I hadn't transformed in a while, due to being occupied with school and work, and Seraphina was getting restless. It was a blessing that the forest was merely a 5-minute walk from the apartment. Apart from that, the fresh air and the natural scent enveloping me was something I craved. I am a wild creature. Ever since I turned 8, I had Seraphina. It started with a peculiar sensation in the back of my mind, as if an alien presence had invaded my thoughts. Initially, I dismissed it, being young and intent on putting as much distance between us and danger as possible. Then, I began suffering from migraines, and my mind seemed to overheat. It felt like a time bomb waiting to detonate. A few days later, the pain receded, and I sensed another consciousness in my mind, one that was intricately connected to my thoughts. Aunt Meve explained to me that it was Seraphina's mental presence, developing within my human vessel. As I grew older, Seraphina matured, and at 13, I transformed for the first time, without Aunt Meve there to comfort me and guide me through it. My bones would shift throughout the process, and fur would grow and retract from my skin. After my initial transformation, I adapted to subsequent ones, and was able to change into my wolf form in a matter of seconds. My senses started to heighten further after that. Whenever I was in this form, she took the lead and I would step back into the corners of her consciousness, similar to what she did when we were in our human form. Seraphina alerted me, her ears twitching at the sound of approaching paws. Her attention snapped towards the source of the noise. Amidst the shadows of the trees, I could perceive the silhouette of another wolf. Gradually, the wolf emerged from the shadows, the moonlight highlighting its form. The dark-furred wolf growled in warning at us, but Seraphina stared at him without flinching. It was challenging to determine if the wolf was male or female, but given the conversations I'd had with the students at Everest High, there were no female shapeshifting wolves, which was unlikely given my existence. However, it was safer to assume that the wolf was male, and, judging by Seraphina's size, he would likely deduce that I was also male. I sensed a strong aura of authority emanating from the wolf, but it didn't make Serafina bow her head in submission. His menacing dark eyes scrutinized me. I was almost his size, but I knew that in another year, I would be taller. Since my first transformation, I noticed that I was growing rapidly. Serafina, what are you doing? I questioned her when she started to approach the other wolf. Wolves of such size usually indicated a status. Based on my observations, I concluded that the wolf before me was an alpha and belonged to Jax's pack, whose territory I had nearly trespassed earlier. I was unsure whether he had come to confront me about the incident or had simply run into me during his patrol. At the very moment the wolf growled in warning again, Serafina lowered her body to the ground, surrendering at his feet. Despite my mental protests, she settled our head between our front paws. The wolf fell silent and looked down at her with a puzzled expression. After a moment, his face softened, and I felt a damp sensation on top of my head. He had licked it without realizing it. Seemingly pleased with his reaction, Serafina rolled onto her back in a playful manner. She was teasing an alpha wolf we had never met before. She let out a howl and promptly got up, racing away with the alpha wolf hot on her heels. She dodged trees, leaped over logs, and abruptly halted when she noticed he was lagging behind. She attempted to hide behind trees, an utterly foolish and juvenile act, given our enhanced sense of smell. I had a feeling she was doing it on purpose, because when he found her, she let out a triumphant yip. The alpha wolf then pounced on her, but not in an aggressive manner. Instead, they wrestled around in the grass playfully. The alpha wolf and I rolled around on the forest floor, my thick coat tangled with his as we snapped playfully at each other. He was as agile as me, easily dodging my mock bites and pinning me to the ground. We circled one another, both of us panting from the exertion of our play fight. As time wore on, I noticed the alpha wolf's demeanor changing. He became more aggressive, his playful snarls morphing into genuine growls. I backed away slowly, not wanting to provoke him any further, but he continued to advance, his body language clear. He was challenging me for dominance. The air was thick with tension as we squared off, both of us locked in a standoff. The alpha wolf's hackles were raised, his lips pulled back in a snarl. I could feel Serafina urging me to submit, but I wasn't about to back down. With a sudden burst of speed, I lunged at the alpha wolf, my teeth bared. The two of us clashed, a blur of fur and teeth as we fought for supremacy. I could feel the alpha wolf's strength, his powerful jaws clamping down on my shoulder. But I wasn't about to give up. With a sudden twist, I managed to break free, snapping at his exposed flank. The alpha wolf yelped in pain, backing away. The two of us circled one another, both of us breathing heavily from the exertion of our fight. But it was clear that I had the upper hand. The alpha wolf's posture was more submissive, his ears laid back against his head. He let out a low growl, but it was clear that he was beaten. With a final, triumphant howl, I stood my ground, my chest heaving as I looked down at the defeated alpha wolf. It was a hard-fought victory, but I had proven my dominance. Chapter 5, Suspicion, Everest Heights, Everest Academy. Now, Amelia. Introducing Amelia to all of you. A tense pause filled the air until Anakin shattered it. Well, have you decided to share your number with me now? I responded with a smirk. Dream on, sunshine. Some giggles broke the tension, and I sent a silent thanks to Anakin. The others soon introduced themselves. I placed my tray, which was laden with fries, onto the table and took a seat next to Anakin while Nia settled beside me. Amelia, are you still on for your shift tonight at Ren's place? Jax queried from an adjacent table. Could you, maybe, smuggle out a milkshake for me? My eyes caught Mr. Icy Blue engrossed in his burger, seemingly uninterested in the ongoing chatter. You're at Ren's Brews and Bites, Helios interjected. I felt my fries depleting and swatted Anakin's hand, sending him a sharp look. Yes, being an orphan, I've got to hustle every night. I wasn't exactly stretching the truth. Aunt Neve was all I had memories of, and her passing was due to my involvement. The group nodded, respecting my privacy. A lingering question bubbled up. How many packs are present here? That sure caught Mr. Blue's gaze. Casper clarified, counting Blood Moon territory around 4. My pack, Eclipse, Midnight Howler under AT's leadership, the Werewolf Council's smaller pack, and Blood Moon Domain. The mention of the last one prickled at my memory. But what intrigued me more was linking Midnight Howler to AT. Could he be the future Alpha? But the Werewolf Council's group in Blood Moon aren't within Everest Heights. They're in a different town entirely. You should see Blood Forest. It nearly covers half of Everest Heights, and the rest are expansive palace lands. Mom's currently expanding our already vast palace. Her mom may be a professional designer, And how old are you, Amelia? 16. You'll be meeting your mate soon then, around 17, which was just around the corner. Everyone knows that, Nia. She's aware, Anakin commented, his tone dripping sarcasm, earning him a fierce look from Nia. You, being the destined lead beta and so close to my elder sis. She caught herself mid-sentence, possibly about to say sister, but stopped abruptly. Lead beta, connected to Blood Moon? The atmosphere grew thick with tension. Anakin was the first to exit, followed swiftly by Nia. Feeling the awkwardness, I caught Helio's eyes. Complicated, he silently conveyed, unfazed by the sudden exit of my two most familiar acquaintances. I was left among chatty companions. Though quiet, I kept stealing glances at AT. His assertive aura was palpable, contrasting with everyone else. He caught my gaze, and we shared an intense moment until the bell disrupted our connection. For this project, you'll work in pairs. It's due in a fortnight, Miss Jackson informed. We were assigned to design our website, updating it occasionally. Given my lack of personal tech, Miss Jackson permitted me to use the school's computer lab and minimized home assignments. She began partnering us by surnames. My expression twisted when she announced, Miss Lake, Mr. Wilhelm. Surprisingly, we shared the class, and I had deduced that he was in his final year. Soon, AT settled next to me. After she completed the pairings, he inquired, your place? I lack a laptop, I whispered, trying to avoid his penetrating gaze. Then, mine. I'll collect you post-shift. When do you finish? He remembered our chat from lunch. Impressive. By 8:30, I texted Lily informing her I'd be home late, and she'd need to care for Iris. As we discussed our evening agenda, AT occasionally chimed in with suggestions. Gazing into his eyes, they felt eerily familiar, though I couldn't pinpoint why. Has she gone to bed? Yes, miss. About 30 minutes ago, came the weary reply. A weight lifted off my shoulders. You'll find an extra pillow and blanket in the closet, and there's Lasagne in the freezer. I regret this, Lily, I genuinely do. It's all right, miss. We've already ordered. Don't stress. I'll cover it as soon as I return. No need. My treat. Are you sure? Absolutely, Miss Amelia. Thanks, Lily. Be safe. After ending the call, I finished cleaning the tables, washed up, and changed in the cafe restroom. Exiting, I found AT waiting by his swanky car. Without a word, he slid into the driver's seat. Pondering where to sit, I chose the front, fastened my seatbelt, and braced for the silent drive to his, well, mansion. The Pack residence, he clarified, noting my curiosity. Understood. Inside, familiar aromas greeted me. It was the Pack my wolf and I had narrowly avoided before. Could he have been that wolf, or perhaps his father? Amelia, he called out, snapping me from my thoughts. Following him upstairs, his room was spacious, encompassing a lounge, bedroom, and ensuite. It dwarfed my apartment. Working on our nature-themed website, he'd capture images while I'd caption them. Post-work, he confronted me from a room corner. What's your game? Confused, I countered. What are you hinting at? Do you find it odd, a solitary female wolf turning up from the blue? His volume increased, accusatory undertones evident. You're the first of your kind we've met. If that isn't strange, what is? Excuse me. My anger surged. Drop the act? Who sent you? A rogue. The rage was overpowering. Taking deep breaths, I reined in my wolf, ready to burst forth. For your information, I've been in Everest Heights for 2 years. The new policy brought my presence to light at our school. We might have met otherwise. Now, if you'll excuse me. He was dumbfounded, as intended. Regaining my composure, I stated, keep your apologies. I've someone waiting. See you Thursday. With that, I departed. Chapter 6. Runner, Everest Hills, Everest High School, present. Amelia. Are you attending tryouts for track and field? Nia bombarded me with the question first thing in the morning, as she leaned to my side. Once the teacher of our AP Calculus class wasn't looking in our direction, it seems she and I are in the same class. Well, yeah, it was time for me to use my sprinting skills for some good use. I shrugged as if it wasn't a big deal. Why didn't you tell me anything? I had to learn it from Anakin himself, and I've been in track and field for 2 years. She continued, and I tried to reply as much as I could. Nia was talkative, so she didn't really mind if I just nodded the whole time. My mind drifted as I thought of the episode between AT and me 2 nights ago. I'll be seeing him right after I drop Iris off from school. I was still mad about what he said. He had no right to accuse me like that. He knew nothing about my life. I wasn't keen on really informing anyone. I mentioned it to Anakin when he kept pestering me with questions as if he was interviewing me. Honestly, when will he ever stop? Nia chuckled at my slight jibe and agreed. I doubt he will. I'm just glad I don't have to put up with man-whore behavior from him. Honestly, I've had enough of my brother and Casper being like that. She huffed and toyed with her ginger hair, resting her elbow on the wooden desk. They do seem very sure of themselves, I commented, and the bell rang. We hurried out of the classroom. Speaking of man-whores, there they are. I sensed Nia's growing annoyance, and her expression turned sour. I was worried she might retch when she saw Helios getting a bit too intimate with a woman. Casper, meanwhile, was getting handsy with the same woman. Honestly, I wasn't great at making comparisons. I felt my stomach turn, and I grabbed Nia's shoulder, urging her to move faster away from the scene. Once they were out of sight, we both made gagging noises. That was vile. Yeah, you're telling me. You move well. With a bit more training, you might outpace me, Nia remarked during our 10-minute break. I held back from showing my full capabilities. I didn't want any more attention than necessary. Laughter echoed, and a tall light brown-haired girl, about the same height as Nia, appeared with her group. As if she'd outdo me, she came in fourth, and even Tiffany outran her. Your attitude makes me want to throttle you, Zara. Nia looked ready to explode, her eyes darkening with anger. Losing control of your wolf, Zara retorted, her face twisted in spite. At the mention of her wolf, Nia's rage cooled a bit. No matter how you act now, it doesn't change the pain you feel from her loss. Just stop, Zara. Zara frowned and departed. Her. Who were they talking about? Let's go. Nia tried to smile, but her eyes betrayed sadness. The coach signaled, and we took our positions. At the whistle's sound, I sprinted, weaving past others. My thoughts consumed me as we raced. The tryouts were in the gym, and when they ended, I found myself with another group outdoors. I saw Nia again, and met others, including Zara and her group. Snapping back to reality, I realized I had crossed the finish line on the third lap. The surroundings were eerily quiet. Zara, her friends, and even the coach looked shocked. How did you run faster than me without shifting? Nia whispered, catching her breath. I've been running all my life, I replied half-jokingly. Zara stared, a mix of shock, recognition, and curiosity in her eyes. Why? After gym, I changed and packed up. It was past 4 p.m., and I needed to get Iris. I bid Nia farewell, and as I approached the school gate, a familiar car pulled up. A.T. lowered the window, his expression icy. Get in. I resisted, glaring. No. I'm not asking twice, Amelia. Get in. I reluctantly obeyed, taking the passenger seat. Where to? Just head to Hillside Kindergarten. He looked puzzled but complied. When we arrived, Iris was waiting. Iris. Took your time, Amelia. I hugged her quickly. Sorry. I looked back at A.T., who appeared baffled. Without asking permission, I put Iris in the back seat. Let's head home. He started driving after I gave him the address. He frequently glanced at the rear view mirror, clearly curious about Iris. Are you her boyfriend? Iris asked innocently. I was taken aback. Iris, where did you hear that? A.T. chuckled. No, I'm just a classmate. Oh, then her mate. I shot Iris a look. Where are you getting this? From other kids at school, she replied. Realization dawned on A.T. mates have to have contact. It usually becomes clear when both turn 17. Well, Amelia turns 17 soon. Maybe she's your mate. I shot her a stern look, and she fell silent. When we reached our destination, I told A.T. to wait. After a quick change and grabbing a few essentials, I returned. We headed to his place to work on a project. After a couple of hours, he suddenly asked, why haven't you joined a pack? I hadn't really considered it. We'd always been on the run, and I didn't want to bring any trouble to a pack, especially with him still after us. I never really thought about it. Is it because of Iris? Is she your sister? No, not by blood. I've been looking after her since I was 11. He seemed to understand, mulling it over in silence. Eventually, he apologized for his earlier accusations. I'm an alpha, protective by nature. It makes me wary. I understood his perspective but kept my feelings to myself. As our session continued, there was an underlying tension between us, one that would likely shape our interactions moving forward. Chapter 7. Memories. Rebel Realms, Woodlands. 10 years ago, stirring to consciousness, I discovered my wrists and ankles were bound together. The ropes, thoroughly soaked with wolfsbane, constricted me. Thanks to the training from my father, I managed to extend my young wolf fangs, and tore through the ropes, all while trying to ignore the searing pain on my mouth. After freeing my ankles, my eyes darted to several men, lazily sleeping against tree trunks, negligently guarding their captive. Such carelessness, moving stealthily to avoid drawing attention to my breakout. I was almost clear when shouts rang out, "Capture her! The young heiress is getting away! To mother, I must find mother!" I whispered repeatedly as I raced through the woodland, occasionally glancing back to ensure I was outpacing my pursuers. Their hurried footsteps were a constant reminder. Although swift, I felt the wolfsbane's debilitating effects. My full power was just out of reach and my focus wavered. Distracted, I caught my foot on a hidden vine, sending me crashing into the ground. A sharp pain shot through my skull, and as my vision blurred, I heard the ominous approach of heavy boots. A burning sensation awoke me. As my eyes adjusted, a sinister man wielding a whip stood before me, his gaze filled with malicious intent. My mind raced, trying to understand. Who am I? Where am I? Why is this happening? My confusion must have been evident. Before I could gather my thoughts, the whip lashed out, bringing another burning sting. He chuckled at my distress. "Soon, you'll dance on my strings. With you, the kingdom will be within my grasp." He retreated, locking the only exit behind him. His words made no sense. What happened?" I whimpered. I found myself within a wooden enclosure, surrounded by a dense forest, but my unfamiliar surroundings weren't the only source of my discomfort. My wrists were shackled, silver digging into my flesh. Emotions overwhelmed me. Pain, confusion, loss. Tears welled in my eyes as the reality of my situation sank in. Since my capture, my sustenance has been meager at best. The man, whose name I later learned was Draven, took perverse pleasure in my amnesia. Filth clung to me and the stench was nearly unbearable. For what seemed like forever, Draven tormented me with both physical and emotional pain. Yet throughout it all, there was an oddity. My wounds healed rapidly. I witnessed men transform into wolves, but rather than shocking me, it felt almost natural. It wasn't until much later that Draven finally removed the cage, allowing me to join their camp. There, I was cared for by his partner, Meve. She shielded me from Draven's worst impulses, defending me as if I were her own. I'll forever be indebted to Meve. Because of me, she turned on Draven, aiding my escape from his relentless cruelty. One night, Meve roused me, her gaze conveying urgency. Without a word, we left the camp, navigating the woods, evading Draven's sentinels. However, when a distant shout of "Who's there?" pierced the night, panic set in. Relying on instinct, Meve and I fled, pushing ourselves to speeds that would seem impossible to most. Draven's furious cries echoed behind us, spurring us to even greater speeds. Hours later, we found refuge in an abandoned warehouse. Meve, ever prepared, had packed essentials. As we rehydrated and caught our breath, she began to explain. "Draven's ambition has consumed him. He calls himself the Rebel King. He sought to use you for power, but I couldn't stand by and watch." Her gaze locked with mine, a hint of recognition in her eyes. But the question remained unasked. The weight of our situation pressed on us, filling the air with tension. Breaking the silence, Meve uttered Amelia. Startled, I looked her way. "That's your name, Amelia?" Tears welled in my eyes, relief washing over me. For 2 long years, I'd been lost, doubting my very identity. "Aunt Meve." My voice trembled as I addressed her. Her sharp intake of breath betrayed her surprise. I moved closer, seeking comfort in her embrace. "Thank you," I murmured, exhaustion taking hold and letting darkness envelop me. Chapter 8. Everest Hills, Amelia's apartment. Present. Amelia. "Wake up, Sarah. It's Draven." Amelia. The weight of a pounding headache forced me upright from the bedding. I took in my environment, and Iris stood there, wearing her school uniform, backpack slung over her shoulder. I brushed a hand over my eyes, trying to focus. Suppressing a yawn, my voice came out raspy. "What time is it?" 8:35. She looked anxious, biting her lip. Her words spurred me into action, but a sharp pain made me flinch. "Hold on, you're not going anywhere with that fever." Iris gently urged me back onto the bed. The cushioned surface brought relief. Another nightmare. Her face crumpled in sympathy. "Just rest. I can handle things. Text me when you arrive at school. Remember your lunch money and bus fare." My voice trailed off, fatigue overtaking me as a warm cloth was laid on my forehead. "Already sorted. Rest, Amelia. Your medicine's on the table." Her voice was the last I registered before sleep claimed me. My stomach's growl woke me. The room was dim, daylight filtering through the curtain gaps. Tears blurred my enhanced vision, and I noticed dry tracks on my face. I rubbed my eyes and glanced at the clock. 3:30. Iris would be back soon. I need to prep for my evening job. The current headache was milder. Standing up, the room spun, and I braced myself against the wall. I picked up my phone and saw a message from Iris. She'd reached school 6 hours ago. Tiredness lingered as I showered. The warm water revitalized me, and I sighed in contentment. The front door announced Iris's return. "Amelia, I'm home." I wrapped a towel around me, padding to the sink. The mirror reflected a haggard face. Scars trailed from my shoulder, past my chest to my stomach. They brought memories rushing back, and I gripped the sink, watching my eyes cloud with gray before black edged in. After dressing and texting Neve, I grabbed my bag and left the bedroom. Iris was on the sofa, munching on chips. Her expression shifted to concern upon seeing me. "You're working tonight?" "Yes, I start in 20 minutes. Neve will join you soon. There's dinner money on the table." I leaned down and kissed her. "But you're still unwell," she protested. "I'll manage. I'll be home by 9. I reassured her and left. On my way to Ren's cafe, I bought a cheap burger. Its taste, though not the best, comforted my empty stomach. Once at the cafe, I changed into my work attire and got busy. Around 7 p.m., the cafe was bustling. The entrance bell chimed repeatedly. In the kitchen, I waited for orders. "You look drained, Amelia," my colleague, Ruff, commented, loading trays with food. "You sure you're up to this?" "I'm managing," I lied, feeling increasingly lightheaded. "All right, these are for table 4, she directed. Approaching the table, I recognized the patrons. "Amelia," Nia called out cheerily as I placed their orders. "Missed you at school," Anakin noted. Now I could see Anakin, Helios, Casper, Jax, and surprisingly AT. "Wasn't feeling great." "You better now?" "Somewhat," I hedged. Attempting to divert from the topic, I asked, "So, what brings you here?" "Business." "Just hungry?" Both Nia and AT spoke simultaneously, sharing a glance. Nia's tone was casual, while AT looked like he wanted the conversation to end. Seeing the awkwardness, Jax jumped in. "We had pack business to discuss, needed a break, so we came here." The others nodded, and I offered a reassuring smile. "Need anything else?" "A sundae, please," Helios pleaded with puppy dog eyes. "Sorry, our machine's down." Helios' comical disappointment earned him a nudge from Nia. "Lyra, don't be such a child." Lyra must be his nickname. She added he probably wanted a sundae as well. They didn't place any more orders, so I got back to work. Approaching the end of my shift at 8:40 p.m., I noticed Nia and Helios in a heated debate. Cleaning nearby tables, I inadvertently overheard their conversation. "She hasn't vanished. She's out there?" Helios' voice rose in frustration. "How can you be sure? It's been 11 years. If she had passed, one of us would have known. Do you see our eyes changing like hers did?" "No. They might have another child." "You're giving up so easily. What kind of sibling does that make you?" With that, Helios stormed out. Puzzled by their conversation, I refocused on my tasks. Fatigue weighed me down. My grip loosened from a table, and I felt myself tip. Strong arms caught me. "Are you okay?" AT asked, his voice showing concern. His touch confirmed my fever. "Leave it to me, Jax. I'll take her home," he told the others. AT supported me out of the cafe, driving me to my apartment. He seemed to know exactly where I lived. "You're in heat, I can tell." His voice was low, charged. Meeting his gaze, I saw his eyes darken before returning to their usual blue. The door opened to reveal Neve's concerned face. After laying me on my bed, AT left. Not long after, the door creaked again, and Iris's voice reached me. "Amelia," she whispered. I responded weakly. She climbed next to me, holding a contact lens case and solution. "You forgot these." She helped me remove them before I surrendered to sleep again. Chapter 9, Heat. Everest Hills. Amelia's apartment. Present. Amelia. Another heatwave coursed through my body, forcing me to arch my back in anguish. My left hand grasped the bed's sheets while the other pressed firmly against my abdomen. My attempts to alleviate the pain proved futile. The torment I felt resembled the monthly cycle of human women, except mine occurred every 3 months. Once home, my mind struggled to accept the statement made by AT, who said I was in heat. It was foolish of me to dismiss such signs. Typically during these heat cycles, nightmares become more prevalent. They can even transform into vivid hallucinations unless I mate. For female werewolves, being in heat represents a critical stage towards completing the mating ritual. There's an overwhelming urge to bond and procreate with one's true partner. The downside, a female werewolf in heat emits a captivating scent that draws unmated males. Yet, only her true mate can truly fulfill her desires. This challenge, set by the moon goddess, stands before every mated wolf. My eyes remained shut, and I could feel the wet streaks of my tears on my hot cheeks. In my distress, I prayed for the agony to end. Barely managing to open my eyes, my blurred vision gradually cleared. Beside my bed, painkillers sat atop a note, with a glass of water nearby. Hastily, I swallowed 4 pills, chasing them down with water, hoping for even a momentary respite. Given the nature of my pain, the pills were likely to offer only slight relief. With a series of groans, I sat up, partially blinded by my hair tickling my cheeks. A deep breath brought the scent of the forest into my lungs, a location I desperately yearned for. Fully opening my eyes, the rhythmic breathing informed me that Iris was asleep on the old couch tonight. My heats had never been this severe. Iris knew my restlessness would disrupt her sleep if she stayed close. The room was bathed in darkness, pierced only by moonlight filtering through the windows. Shadows of branches and leaves played on the floor, cast by the tall pine tree adjacent to the apartment building. Summoning strength, I rose from the bed, fighting against my body's heaviness. The forest. My inner wolf concurred with a whimper. Both of us craved the crisp forest air as a remedy for our shared pain. She needed to transform, hoping it would alleviate some of the discomfort. Limping to the door, I exited the apartment, silently assuring Iris of my temporary departure. The brisk night air sent chills down my back. Amusingly, I wrapped my arms around myself for warmth, even though my heat naturally raises my body temperature. Without a second glance, I ventured towards the forested region of Everest Hills, the place where I had previously encountered AT's wolf form. Though my steps were silent to human ears, any werewolf nearby would easily hear me. I was unfazed by the possibility of encountering pack wolves. If confronted by male werewolves, my training prepared me for defense. The immediate solution: transform and run, providing a distraction from the throbbing pain. Reaching a forgotten road's end, littered with leaves and branches, I assumed human construction plans had been abandoned. Conveniently, this road led to the other side of the forest, close to AT's pack boundary. Desperation took hold. Shedding my clothes and exposing my scar-laden skin, I crouched, shifting into my stark white wolf form within seconds. My heightened senses, amplified by my current state, confirmed the close proximity to AT's pack house. Carrying my clothes in my jaws, I stashed them in a nearby tree. Meave, take control. My consciousness receded as Meave took over. Without delay, she ventured into pack territory, fully aware of our trespass. Soon, we sensed a presence tailing us. We should leave. We don't want to provoke them. Increasing our pace, we sped out of their boundary. Only then did we allow ourselves to relax. However, it quickly became evident that we weren't alone. Suddenly, a weight forced us to the ground, causing a satisfied whimper from my wolf. The newcomer's warmth partially eased our pain. Recognizing the familiar scent, realization dawned. AT. My wolf, reinvigorated, playfully engaged with him. Initially, he seemed upset by our trespass, but his demeanor shifted to puzzlement upon recognizing us. Seeking to appease and apologize for our intrusion, we approached and affectionately licked his face. Unexpectedly, he reciprocated the playful gesture, though he paused upon getting too close. Observing our reactions, he appeared satisfied, engaging us in a spirited chase, darting in circles. But the unyielding pain abruptly halted our fun. Sensing our discomfort, AT's wolf approached with evident concern. We lay down, attempting to wait out the anguish. Comforted by the warmth of his presence and the sensation of his head resting atop ours, I succumbed to the enveloping darkness. Awakening to daylight, the memories of last night flooded back. Glancing beside me, I noticed his unclothed form. Seems I wasn't alone in this. Unsure if he identified me as the White Wolf, I wasn't eager to confront questions I might not have answers to. Knowing my clothes were nearby, I hastily dressed and made my escape, relying on my speed, superior even to most male werewolves. Once out of his vicinity, and clad in my clothes, I fled the scene. Chapter 10. Cook, Everest Heights, Amelia's residence. Present, Amelia. Be there at 11 for our group task. Rather than inquiring, he just stated it outright. And the time, 10:47. I quickly messaged Zoe, then told Iris I'd be gone for a bit. Moments later, my bag was hanging off my back, my shoes impatiently tapping near the entrance after pressing the doorbell. Even a mythical creature could have heard that ring. But by the sleepy sounds, Saturday mornings weren't their thing. My spirits lifted when I heard the familiar noise of someone approaching down the wooden steps, and in no time, I heard the door unlocking. It opened to show a man dressed casually, a scowl paired with an unyielding expression. My attention briefly shifted to his outfit, a printed shirt with a Star of David centered on his chest. He caught my glance, clearing his throat. As my eyes met his, amusement quickly replaced by a frown, finished examining me. "Step inside. I don't have forever," he remarked, though the twinkle in his eye suggested he was teasing. The instant I entered, my stomach's rumble was unmistakable, and Amelia shot me a glance. Unfazed, I responded with a cheeky smile, referencing his earlier words. "Actually, I'm famished, especially since you basically summoned me before breakfast." "Who has breakfast this late?" he murmured, passing by me. "Guess I do," I shot back. He sighed, then gripped my arm, guiding me. "Where to?" I questioned, noting we weren't headed to his room. "Dining area. It's brunch time." I held my tongue. The kitchen was vast, equipped with every conceivable appliance. 4 refrigerators, multiple stoves, and 3 ovens. I didn't even own an oven, and here were 3. I settled onto a stool by a counter. Amelia flitted around, prepping to cook. I observed as he sifted through a fridge, eventually extracting his choice of protein. They had a meaty assortment. "Fish or chicken?" His voice startled me. "Chicken's a no-go for me," I replied. "He's cooking for me." "Fish it is then," he stated without seeking further input. I was cool with it. After all, he was prepping a meal for me. "Need a hand?" I offered. No answer. Fidgeting in my seat, I decided to set the table. After a while, the delicious aroma wafted through the air. My stomach made its hunger evident, and I felt a bit embarrassed. Trying to distract myself, I prepared the dining area, setting out plates and utensils. As the meal was ready, we sat next to each other, enjoying the fish he cooked. "It's amazing. Maybe you should be my personal chef," I remarked, eliciting a chuckle from him. His laugh made me smile. "Then you can serve meals like this all day." "I'll cherish the compliment," he responded. "Who taught you to cook this well?" I inquired between bites. His demeanor shifted. "Mother." He wasn't in the mood to discuss further. Had she passed? Is that why I never saw any parents? Opting for a change of subject, we resumed our meal. Finishing up, he provided drinks, and we settled into the task at hand. As the day went on, others began to stir. Several women entered, greeting Amelia formally. He gestured for us to exit. Ascending the staircase, we entered a room. Our teamwork went smoothly, and by 3 p.m., we were wrapping up our website. Our chats mostly revolved around school, so when he popped a personal question, it took me by surprise. "What's your orphan story?" he asked, shutting down his computer. Studying me intently, answering felt like threading a tightrope honesty without revealing too much. Truthfully, they were lost to me early on. I had an accident, lost my memories, and didn't recognize them. That's when Aunt Neve found me, I explained. His puzzled look prompted Iris's mom. His face cleared, and he pondered before asking, "Never tried searching?" "It's complicated," I whispered, memories of the past threatening to overwhelm. Remembering my parents and the emptiness of not knowing was agonizing. I felt tears forming. He reached out, his touch unexpectedly comforting. I detected recognition in his gaze, a connection I'd felt since our first encounter. So when he whispered, "I'm truly sorry," and drew me close, I found solace in his embrace. Chapter 11. Language. Everest Hills. Midnight Howler's Pack House. Present. Amelia. The only sound was my own sniffles amidst the prevailing quiet. His shirt bore the stains of my tears, yet, in that silence comfort enveloped me. I could have stayed in AT's embrace all day, despite knowing so little about him. Somehow his hold felt like home. The bond I sensed with him was beyond words. It was like being tethered to something unable to break free. His aroma surrounded me, a calming presence, nestled against his slowly rising and falling chest. I nervously played with my fingers, a reflex whenever I felt lost. The remnants of my tears were still there, but the hurt had long faded. All too quickly, the moment passed. Reality hit with the speed of a fast train, and I became acutely aware of our surroundings. The room's temperature seemed to drop, and we both withdrew from our intense embrace. We remained still, neither speaking nor moving. My gaze met his icy blue eyes, both of us swimming in a whirlpool of emotions. Suddenly, his eyes darkened. I knew someone was communicating with him mentally. As he rose, I silently began to gather my things. I felt his gaze the entire time, drawing near. Only a few inches separated us. His familiar fragrance overwhelmed me. It could become addicting. Looking at his lips, I murmured, "Thank you." As I turned to leave, his hand caught my wrist, pulling me back slightly. A surprised gasp escaped me, but I managed to regain my composure. His face was close to close. Those icy eyes seemed to pierce through me. Taking in his handsome features, I felt him lean in further, but then he paused, eyes shutting in what looked like restraint. When they reopened, they held a distant look reminiscent of our first encounter. "We have that report on Tuesday. Let's meet the evening prior to discuss," he stated. I nodded, but neither of us moved. Drawing a deep breath, I felt his forehead touch mine, but then, pulling back, I left without another word. Outside his door, I nearly bumped into Jax, swiftly sidestepping. "Apologies," I said, feeling an inexplicable flush on my cheeks. "Hey Amelia, take care," Jax replied with a knowing smile. As I headed out of the pack house, I was left pondering the events. Those moments replayed, making it hard to focus on anything else. I longed for AT's comfort, touch, and warmth. Glancing at my wristwatch, I realized I was running late for work. Thankfully, my uniform was in my bag. I rushed but still arrived at Ren's Cafe 2 minutes after 4. Pushing the entrance door, I was heading to the kitchen when someone collided with me. I found myself sprawled on the floor, now the center of attention. A soft voice expressed concern. "Oh dear, I am so sorry." I began to get up, noticing the striking resemblance this woman bore to Nia. She was stunning, just like Nia but older. Even though she appeared young, her werewolf nature likely meant she was older. I was in a hurry. "I'm late for my shift," I whispered. She smiled, brushing off the incident, and exited the cafe. But who was she? And why did she, along with Helios and Nia, have those golden eyes? Was it a curse of some kind? Meave had warned us about the danger of being seen without contacts. What about the others? And just who was this mysterious woman? Walking home late after my shift, I missed the last bus. The road was poorly maintained, with cracks resembling tree branches. The moon's glow lit my path, and I could see fallen leaves and twigs. Wet leaves from a prior drizzle stuck to my shoes, and the cold night air made me wrap my arms around myself, trying not to shiver. A noise startled me. I turned to spot a man a short distance away. His scent was off, and when our eyes met, he darted into the forest. A rogue. If he was nearby, that meant Draven could be too. Chapter 12. Absence. Everest Heights, Amelia's residence. Earlier today, Amelia. The groaning woke me. "It's so painful," a voice beside me whispered. I slowly rubbed the remnants of sleep from my eyes, the scene before me gradually coming into focus. The room was in disarray, with Iris kneeling on the floor, gripping her head in torment, repeating her agony aloud. Sweat streamed down her reddened skin, half her face visible, twisted in anguish. Instant recognition hit me. I'd experienced this very sensation years before. She was undergoing the challenging process of her inner wolf becoming known to her, a process that, while it takes place in the mind, leaves no physical evidence for doctors to diagnose. To them, the wolf within would seem imaginary. I moved beside her, gently massaging her back, trying to comfort her. "It's okay, let her in. There's no need for fear. Your wolf is finding its way into your consciousness." As she grimaced, her elongating fangs gave away the depth of her pain. After a few grueling hours, she finally found peace, lying beside me, lulled into a restful slumber by my warmth. Everest Woods. Now, Iris leaned on me, but in a swift move, I grabbed her wrist and turned it, causing her to tumble to the ground in surprise. Holding her stomach, she groaned from where I'd struck. "Are you all right?" I extended my hand to help her up. She grumbled, rubbing her rear. "Did we have to do this right now?" I couldn't help but laugh. Her words echoed what I once asked her mother Meave. "It's essential for you to train both your mind and body, especially now that you're more mentally attuned." Handing her water, I wiped sweat from my brow with a towel draped around my hips. "In a few years, you'll be ready for your first shift." We trained in a secluded spot behind the building, surrounded by greenery. On our way home, she asked, "How did I do?" The sun was up, and we had an hour left before school. She had matched me in some techniques but still had a way to go. My advantage might have come from being mentored by the unmatched Meave, but now she was no longer with us, a loss I still felt responsible for. We approached our apartment, and I searched for the keys in my pocket. "Iris, you just need more practice. After all, it's your beginning. Always maintain focus." Drawing her close, I kissed her forehead. Despite the day's events, my mind constantly wandered. Not even Nia's endless chatter could snap me back to reality. Walking through the school, I noted the tightness of my gym outfit. Approaching Lunar Hall, my attention caught Jax and Vaughn whispering. "There have been rogue sightings," said Jax. "Alpha's deploying hunters." As Vaughn began to reply, he suddenly tensed, receiving a mental message from Jax. I tried to keep up with their hushed conversation, and so did Nia. After their departure, Nia and I exchanged glances, trying to decipher the conversation. Before we could step into the gym, Lyra approached breathless. Nia immediately interrogated him, and I threw in a playful remark about his cat Chocolate. "It's Candy," he corrected, "and guess who's replacing Coach Niger temporarily?" Lyra's hesitation led Nia to react with dread. "It can't be her, right?" But as we entered the gym, I sensed a different atmosphere. My gaze landed on a woman, her posture commanding attention. Her golden eyes locked onto mine, which left me pondering the mystery of their origin. Why are they not pursued like Iris and I? What does he want from us? As we took our seats, Lyra leaned in, introducing the woman. "That's my Aunt Io." Chapter 13, Letter, Everest Hills, Everest High School, present, Amelia. The moisture from my exertion made my shirt cling to my body in an uncomfortable manner. We were commanded to run non-stop for 40 minutes, the penalty for stopping was clear. Yet, for me, running was a delightful pastime. My only complaints were the wet feeling all over my skin, and the strong scent that came with it. Coupled with this were the unique odors from the others present. Trying not to make it obvious, I held back from covering my nose, especially when I sensed the other wolves picking up the changes in the room scent. After this, a change of clothes was a must. Thankfully, the ordeal was nearing its end. The majority had turned a deep shade of red and were slowing down, but I maintained my speed, using a count from 1 to 2400 to keep me steady. Glancing sideways, I saw Nia and Helios panting, with sweat evident on their faces. Nia's hair had come loose, having lost her ponytail in the midst of our run, and she had to frequently move it away from her face. The sight almost made me chuckle. On the other hand, Helios portrayed the classic appearance of a guy at his limits. Just then, our temporary coach, Io, announced 5 minutes left. That spurred me to push myself a bit more. As the session ended, I drank water, feeling its cool relief down my throat, and easing my aching muscles. Looking around, I noticed most were sprawled on the ground, worn out. I was torn between amusement and sympathy. Spotting Nia and Helios on a bench, both catching their breath, their exchange was heated. "How is she even at this school?" Nia's voice rose in pitch. Helios began. "How would I?" but had to pause to catch his breath. "You've forgotten, haven't you?" Nia accused, exasperation clear. She splashed water on her face in frustration. "This really is the worst." "What are you talking about?" Helios asked, genuinely clueless. "May 29th. Does that ring any bells?" Nia's tone was sarcastic. "That's my birthday. Why does she have to torment me every year?" Helios moaned. For her own amusement, Nia retorted. As I was engrossed in their conversation, Io approached. Helios, not noticing her approach, began another rant about her, only to be interrupted by her greeting. Amadeus eyelid. "How are my favorite niece and nephew?" He immediately straightened up and turned to her, visibly irritated. "Why are you doing this to me?" "So, it's Lyra and Faye then," I chimed in, getting their attention. As we left the gym, Helios voiced his discontent about his name once more. Amadeus Helios. "Our parents weren't really creative. Mine just means bright and sunny." "It's kind of repetitive," Nia pointed out. "I've never actually gone by eyelid." Walking toward the exit, the cool breeze felt rejuvenating. I said my goodbyes to the siblings and made my way towards the bus stop. I knew Iris had been picked up by Lily from her school, so she was taken care of. I had thought I'd be spending time with AT after school, but turns out he was caught up with pack responsibilities. Suddenly, a black car stopped in front of me. I tensed up, ready to flee if necessary, but I relaxed when I saw it was Jax. "Alpha wants you at his house for a project," he explained. Another pack member, whom I hadn't met, was with him. After a silent drive, we arrived at a large, ornate house. "This is where you get off," Jax remarked. As I approached the door, the other pack member handed me a key. After ringing the doorbell and getting no response, I decided to let myself in using the key. Chapter 14, Melody, Everest Hills, AT's residence. Present day, Amelia. The potent scent of pine and mint washed over me, so overpowering that I nearly stumbled. My hand shot out to steady myself against the wooden wall. Before me extended a corridor, with an open doorway to one side, leading to what appeared to be a living room. The room was modest yet spotless, predominantly brown. It was evident this hue was the theme of the house. The compact couch in the center of the room, the coffee table constructed from rich mahogany, all seemed to blend harmoniously with the surroundings. A television mounted on the wall added a modern touch. The hallway was adorned with an array of captivating paintings, depicting beautiful landscapes, majestic wolves, and vast oceans. Each one bore the signature of a woman named Aurora Wilhelm. Could that be his mother? As I traversed the corridor, a faint melody began to echo around the house, growing stronger with each step. Passing by a bathroom, a kitchen, and even an art studio, I wondered if he too found solace in painting. Ascending the staircase at the hallway's end, I carefully tread, drawn by the soft tune that filled the air. Finally, I came to a halt in front of a door, from behind which the music emanated. With a sense of hesitance, I laid my hand on the doorknob, turning it slowly. As the door creaked open, I was met with the sight of a familiar figure immersed in playing the piano. The melody was melancholic, filled with sorrow and desolation. I stood, mesmerized, watching his fingers dance across the black and white keys, creating a unique symphony. It was breathtaking. Leaning against the doorway, I found myself entranced by the sight of him. The fluid movements of his arms, the agility of his fingers on the keys. His regular blue t-shirt and shorts offered a casual contrast to his intense concentration. The stoop in his posture suggested a deep-seated pain. I was inexplicably drawn towards him. I could hear his uneven breathing, inhaling through his nose, exhaling through his mouth, mirroring the rhythm of the melody. The curtains fluttered in the biting breeze, but he remained unaffected, engrossed in his music. I knew he was aware of my presence, but chose to ignore it. But I didn't mind. I was engrossed in the magic of his performance. Summoning courage, I stepped into the room, my footsteps muffled by the plush red carpet beneath. I seated myself beside him, my legs folded, watching him intently. His performance was far more than just satisfactory. It was spellbinding. The air was thick with intensity. Closing my eyes, I basked in the warmth radiating from him, as if it were dancing in harmony with the music he was creating. Suddenly, a soft hum slipped past my lips, matching his rhythm, reminding me of a lullaby. "Mom, sing us a wowaby." The voice of my twin brother from the past echoed in my mind. "Yeah, me too, me too." My younger sister chimed in, barely awake. I remained quiet, waiting for my turn, just as Mama had taught me. "Shush, my little wolflings." Mama's voice was as sweet as honey. "Now, what lullaby would it be?" The memory began to fade as the piano's melody dwindled. It was replaced by a vision of people I barely recognized, their faces blurred and unrecognizable. I shrugged off the strange feeling and opened my eyes to meet AT's captivating blue gaze. His eyes were scrutinizing me, taking in every detail. An uncomfortable silence ensued, neither of us willing to break eye contact. Amidst the suffocating atmosphere, I extended my hand towards him, but midway, I hesitated, pulling back. Just as I began to withdraw my hand, he caught my wrist, his grip firm. "It was beautiful," I whispered. The words seemed to soften his icy gaze. He guided my hand towards the piano keys. "You don't play." His statement was matter of fact, his hand still holding mine. "I don't," I admitted, allowing him to guide my fingers over the keys, the same melody echoing around the room. But it was different when it was just him. A smile tugged at my lips as a wave of excitement and nervousness washed over me. The warmth of his hand against mine was sending my senses into a whirl. I found it hard to concentrate. I was losing myself. My gaze returned to his. Atreus, his name slipped out before I could stop myself. He ceased guiding my hand, focusing his attention entirely on me. His hands moved up to cup my cheeks, his gaze intense. He inched closer and closer, his chest against mine, his body perfectly aligned with mine. One of my hands rested against his chest, the other made its way to the back of his neck, gently caressing the skin and pulling him closer. I inhaled deeply, his unique scent of pine and mint calming my nerves. "What is it with you, Amelia?" he mumbled, his eyebrows knitting together in confusion. His lips slightly parted, and he began to lean in. And then, I felt his lips on mine. Chapter: Faint Memories. Pillar Town, Amelia's former residence. Nearly a decade passed. Amelia. A tired yawn left me as I roused from the bed. Morning light filtered through the grimy curtains, painting a divine luminescence around the space. Glancing at the nearby clock, I saw it was around 7 a.m. This had become my routine since Aunt Neve decided it was time for my training. But today, strangely, the house was silent. Our training should have commenced an hour ago, yet there was no sign or sound of her. Rising, I neatly arranged the covers. I wondered why Aunt Neve hadn't stirred me. The other side of the bed was in disarray. My eyes felt weighted with remnants of sleep. Shuffling to the window, I pulled back the curtains to let in the full morning light. The fabric cords tangled slightly as I knotted them. The sun's warmth hit me, its energy dispersing my tiredness. From our 5th-floor apartment, I gazed at the town below, rows of identical houses interrupted by occasional trees. Children played on the main road beneath, and a pang of longing struck me. Being constantly on the move meant I never made any lasting friendships. It was a necessary precaution to evade our pursuers. This sense of isolation had been growing on me, but I shook it off. My only constant was Aunt Neve, and I was grateful for her presence, even though I occasionally yearned for what others had. Turning away from the view, my eyes settled on some pills strewn beside the alarm clock. I scooped them up into a nearby bottle. Suddenly, a muffled thud reached my ears. Another presence, faint but recognizable. Aunt Neve was behind a distant door. My heightened senses, a gift from my shifter lineage, alerted me. No, why of all times? Her voice was desperate, filled with a plea. What was causing her this distress? More sounds followed, like the clatter of objects and a heavy thud. Concerned, I dashed to the bathroom door. Aunt Neve was there, disheveled, leaning over the toilet, retching. The sight was heart-wrenching. I knelt beside her, holding her hair back as she continued. She cursed under her breath, visibly frustrated. Handing her some tissue, I tried to comfort her. Meeting my gaze, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Amelia." Although she was never one for displays of affection, I hugged her, feeling her ragged breaths. That's when I sensed it, a tiny, rhythmic heartbeat, faint but distinct from Aunt Neve's. Thump thump. "We'll take care of her, Auntie," I whispered, my face nestled in her dark hair. "Her? How do you know?" Aunt Neve's voice held a hint of amusement. "I just know. She's going to be my little sister," I replied with a smile. Despite her exhaustion, a warm glow spread across Aunt Neve's face. Embracing me tighter, she murmured, "Indeed she will." Using all my strength, I helped Aunt Neve to her feet. I felt a unique bond with her, one that had been growing steadily. She had sacrificed so much for me, fleeing to save a child from the cruel grasp of her mate, especially an amnesiac one like me. Would our paths have even crossed had I not been taken? As we descended the stairs, my thoughts focused on the present. I proposed cooking breakfast for us, suggesting Aunt Neve rest. With a baby on the way, she needed nutrition and care. Now, there were 3 of us to protect. It wasn't just me anymore. Another innocent soul would soon join this unforgiving world, and she'd need protection from her own father. Baby Iris, I pledged to shield you even before you entered this challenging realm. Chapter 16, Lost Memories, Blood Moon Realm, Royal Abode. A dozen years in the past, Amelia. My father's deep laughter filled the room, despite my mischievous attempts to disturb his slumber. He was deep in sleep, each breath marked by a soft snore, undisturbed, even though I was seated right atop him. My feet were tucked into the pristine bed covers, while my long brunette locks playfully grazed my shoulders. I leaned in closer, pressing my little nose against his just to tease him. My tiny hands brushed his waist gently, akin to the soft caress of a feather. Yet, all he offered in response was a subtle twitch of his nose. A slight frown formed on my face. He was such a heavy sleeper. For a moment, I simply admired him, noting our shared facial features. Then, up to mischief, I had an idea. Whispering into his right ear, I took a sharp breath, and then let out a piercing scream. Swiftly, I rolled off the bed, taking refuge underneath it, holding back my giggles. As expected, my father jolted awake with surprise. What on earth? Recognizing my presence, he peered under the bed. "Amelia," he playfully reprimanded, a hint of laughter in his tone. Pretending to be all innocent, I replied with my most endearing voice, "What is it, Dada? Come out here, you little rascal." Before I could retreat further, he reached for me, lifting me up with ease and positioning me on the bed. He began to tickle me relentlessly. "Dada, stop." "I apologize." "Ha ha ha." Tears formed at the corners of my eyes, a result of excessive laughter. Eventually, when he ceased his tickling assault and I caught my breath, he inquired, "What was that little act about?" Feigning innocence once more, I retorted, "What act?" Just then, my tummy grumbled loudly, signaling hunger. "You've not had your breakfast?" he asked, playfully pinching my cheeks. "Nope," I replied with a mischievous glint in my eyes. With a chuckle, he whisked me off to the dining hall. There, I noticed my younger sister with a helper by her side. Her fiery red hair, reminiscent of our mother's, caught my attention. Observing the room further, I noted the absence of my mother and brother. Once seated, my father initiated breakfast, a tradition that had persisted from ancient times. The meal began only after he took his first bite, a custom unique to the Blood Moon realm. After the meal, I approached my father, who was deep in conversation with his advisors. I wished to visit the town, I interrupted, using my best pleading face. One of the advisors, Uncle Sean, chuckled. It seems Amelia desires your company today. I'll manage the paperwork. Conceding, my father ruffled my hair affectionately, signaling agreement. In moments, we were outside. My father transformed into his majestic wolf form, inviting me to ride atop him. Clutching his fur, we embarked on an exhilarating journey through the Blood Moon Woods. The thrill of the wind in my face and hair was unmatched. These moments with him were precious, but little did he know the real reason behind today's adventure. He was in for a treat, my dear Dada. Chapter 17, Trust, Everest Heights. Inside AT's residence. Now, Amelia. Inferno. I shut my eyes, embracing the renewed sensation. A mere brush from him electrified me, setting my longing aflame. My challenge was to rein in the transformation, to prevent the darkening of my eyes and the extension of my nails. As his hands mapped my contours, he passionately claimed my mouth, muffling my soft gasps when he drew me tighter. My move was more forceful, which resulted in him falling back onto the piano stool. I was perched on his hips, my locks in wild disarray. Perspiration trickled, making some hair cling to me. Pausing for a breath, I rested my hands on his torso, trailing them up to his face. Taking the lead, I pressed into his mouth, teasing his bottom lip, drawing a deep murmur from him. Amelia, he murmured as our tongues intertwined. What was taking over me? Our palpable chemistry was overwhelming. I felt a foreign urge rising, but its nature eluded me. I was simultaneously in command and adrift in this potent pull towards him. Was I conflicted? Could he be my? Breaking the kiss, I found myself cradled in his lap. His fingers gently tilted my face to meet his previously icy gaze, now transitioning to its natural gray hue. Did he share my turmoil? What troubles you? His voice carried genuine worry. That inaugural kiss, I'd offered it to him. This bond felt unparalleled to any other potential connection. What was evolving between us? We shifted from cool detachment to soul-deep understanding in mere moments. I'm lost in thought. What is this connection? My voice barely above a whisper, though I was certain he caught my words. He stiffened momentarily. Since our encounter at that cafe, you've constantly been on my mind. There's an unexplainable pull towards you, Amelia. Perhaps you are. He trailed off, leaving the words unsaid, yet understood. The ensuing quiet wasn't uncomfortable. Our combined warmth was soothing. I rested against him, comforted by his rhythmic breathing and heartbeat. My family called this place home. He began unexpectedly, hesitation evident in his tone and posture. Sensing his vulnerability, my instinct pushed me to console him, something entirely foreign to me. Gently touching his face, I tried to convey understanding. You don't need to explain further, I murmured softly. He rested his forehead against mine. But I must. I wrongfully suspected you because of a past betrayal. A wolf I trusted led to the devastation of my family and a significant portion of my pack. He was the key to the Rogue King, and I was helpless. His duty now was safeguarding his pack from the Rogue King, while we shared an adversary. Given the threat Iris and I faced, I couldn't let him place unyielding faith in me. It's okay, I whispered, shifting comfortably in his embrace. Casper, I encircled his neck, drawing him nearer. Make me a promise. He looked puzzled. What do you wish? I needed to shield him from feeling deceived again. Never fully trust me. A quarter hour remained. The unexpected test was soon ending. Its subject, math. Of all things, math. Draven wasn't exaggerating about Casper and Nia's aunt stepping in. I discreetly observed her, wearing classic nerdy black framed glasses, odd for a werewolf with impeccable vision. Her blonde hair was neatly bunned. Engrossed in a book, she seemed to have a soft spot for young adult fiction. Fidgeting with my pen, I was acutely aware of the ticking clock. Fortunately, I'd paid heed in Ms. Zara's lessons. The bell signaled freedom. Hastily, I handed my work to Ms. Alara. As I was departing, she beckoned. How about a sprint after lessons? Nia spoke of your prowess in track and field. I replied, sounds good, but I've work tonight. How about tomorrow? She smiled. Absolutely. Till then, Amelia. Her wink was coupled with a cryptic look. What's her deal? Chapter 18, Jacob. Sclera Town, Sclera Forest. 3 years ago. Amelia. My hands dipped into the freshwater lake of Sclera Town. The bag carrying my workload sat peacefully on my back. It wasn't heavy, but walking home for 20 minutes was exhausting, especially when I had to babysit the whole day. It was the only way to earn money before I turned 16. Babysitting twins was my far-fetched job at the moment, and thankfully, I had enough patience and my motherly instinct not to hurt them. I have Iris back in the abandoned warehouse, and I told myself over and over again that I was doing this for the both of us. She needed to be safe from the hands of the Rogue King, and I can never risk that from happening. The breeze carried my tied brown locks as it flowed to my back. It was around 7 in the evening. I knew since I witnessed the sunset myself, and it occurs at 6. The forest was the only thing making a lot of noise. The noise never bothered me as a wolf. I was sitting on top of a rock and simply closed my eyes for a while. I needed this, the peacefulness that the forest provides. But I knew that hoping had a sick trick of defying my wishes, and often pushed me towards the violence and havoc. My ears rang drastically, and I soon heard violent footsteps from a mile away. Judging by the speed, they were wolves. Initially, my instinct told me to run, take Iris, and move to another town. But this time, I listened to my nose. The scent washed through me, and I could definitely tell there were 2 wolves. Only one of them was a rogue, and the other had a distinct neutral scent. The scent of blood began to fill my nostrils, prompting me to run in my human form, which could easily be mistaken for wolf form. In under a minute, I arrived at the scene. A musky small brown wolf and a larger dirty brown one were fighting, with the bigger one having the upper hand. I could tell the larger one was the rogue, and with fury coursing through my veins, I intervened, dealing a fatal blow. After ensuring the rogue was no longer a threat, I turned my attention to the smaller wolf. I knelt beside the wolf, and he began to heal. He soon shifted back into his human form, revealing a young man with dark brown hair. Without hesitation, I reached into my bag and handed him some spare clothes, an oversized t-shirt and shorts. As he changed, our eyes met, and I noticed the warm hazel color of his eyes. They felt inviting and familiar. "Do you want to come with me? I'll make sure you're treated and can rest at my place. We wouldn't want to alarm any humans and have to concoct a convincing cover story." He nodded in acknowledgement, though pain was evident in his expression. Still, he managed a comforting smile. "All right." I supported him, and we proceeded to the abandoned warehouse. The journey was silent. I've never been one to start conversations. Once we reached the warehouse, I called out, "Iris, I'm back." The door creaked, revealing only partial light inside. My gaze darted around, searching for the 6-year-old, yet she was nowhere in sight. Iris. My worry wasn't about her being taken. I feared she might be injured. I could sense her presence, and I knew she was close by. Just as I began to wonder if she was playing a trick on me, "Boo." Her voice startled not me, but the young man, causing him to lose his balance and fall. "Iris, why would you scare him like that?" I admonished. She appeared, seeming surprised at the newcomer's presence. "I'm sorry. I thought you were Amelia," she defended, genuine concern evident in her tone. We both went to the young man's side, helping him up. "Are you okay?" He nodded, directing a soft smile at Iris. Directing him to a chair, I asked Iris to fetch a first aid kit. As I treated his wounds, I felt him suppress his discomfort. "You don't need to hide your pain," I assured him. He nodded again. His silence was becoming increasingly conspicuous, making the atmosphere awkward. Iris, ever the inquisitive one, bombarded him with questions. "What's your name? Are you alone? How old are you? Will you be staying with us now? Do you like Amelia?" The rush of queries took the boy by surprise. I shot Iris a look, prompting her to mumble an apology. The young man seemed unfazed, though. He made a writing gesture with his hands. "You can't speak." The realization hit me. No wonder he hadn't uttered a word. I handed him pen and paper. He scribbled a quick note. "My name's Jacob. Nice to meet you. Everest Hills, Everest High School, present." Entering the cafeteria, a myriad of scents hit me. Yet, the only ones I truly recognized were reminiscent of pine trees and deep mint. It had been some time since I last encountered them, and their absence weighed on me. Holding my books close, I made my way through the bustling space. My stomach rumbled in anticipation of the fries I was craving. Amid the crowd, our eyes met. Fortunately, I wasn't the center of attention today, no longer intriguing others with my lone wolf origin story. Having secured my fries, I noticed familiar faces at the central table. However, I decided to sit alone in a quiet corner, longing for a moment of peace. As I savored the crispy fry, a familiar deep voice remarked, "I hope you're enjoying those fries for the right reasons." My face reddened, and I stammered, "It's just the fries." His teasing grin told me he was thinking about our recent intimate encounter. Rolling my eyes, I flung a fry at him, playfully telling him to be quiet. His rare laughter filled the air, drawing attention from our peers. Our moment of levity was interrupted by the end of lunch. He accompanied me partway to my next class. An intense longing simmered between us, though neither of us acted on it. But suddenly, he pulled me close, his voice soft yet urgent. Come to the ball with me. After a brief, passionate kiss, he left, leaving me dazed. Lost in the memory, I was startled by the teacher's voice introducing a new student. My heart raced as I recognized those familiar hazel eyes. Class, meet Jacob Kingsley. Chapter 19, Counsel. Everest Hills. Feck ought to approach me himself if there's something pressing to talk about. Having a mere messenger deliver messages is disrespectful to the alpha of the pack you're addressing. He articulated every word dripping with frigid irritation. He was positioned comfortably in his chair, his back against his study desk, hands occupied with official documents sealed with wax. As the door's knock sounded and his gamma's voice identified the visitor, he instantly knew the scent familiar to every wolf. I've brought a letter for you, the visitor began, barely suppressing a laugh, sensing the alpha's lack of amusement. Apart from this letter, there's more to discuss. After an extended pause, the alpha lifted his eyes, settling on the man standing before him. With a deep exhale and a piercing stare, he remained unyielding, while the visitor, seemingly unperturbed, chose a seat across the desk. Extending the silver-sealed letter, the alpha took it, contemplating its potential content. As he tore the envelope and perused the document, one particular piece of news regarding the Rogue King aggravated him. It was evident the rogues had wreaked havoc successfully with other packs. His intense grip crinkled the paper. Regardless of the council leader's authorship, he was set on confronting the Rogue King himself. You've seen the entire. The alpha swiftly interrupted. Speak your piece, Exa, he growled, a low rumble betraying his efforts to control his inner wolf. Regaining composure, Exa rested a hand on the table, locking eyes with the alpha. From what you've read, you're aware of the lone wolves near your territory, right? Understanding Exa's insinuation, the alpha's tension was palpable as he dropped the letter and clenched his hands. With a weary exhale, Exa continued, Kek instructed me to assign you the duty of monitoring these lone wolves. It's peculiar, having two female lone wolves in this vicinity, especially near Blood Moon territory. We won't allow history to repeat. We grow from past errors. The formal tone did little to mask the consolation. Clear. A chilling silence ensued before the alpha retorted, if it's necessary. And another thing. Noticing the alpha's increasing impatience, Exa pushed forward. Your pack will patrol Everest Hills and the eastern Blood Moon territory during the young prince's festivities. The lead alpha highlighted this due to concerns about the Rogue King's potential intrusion. He'll brief you soon. You'll be updated promptly. With a mere nod and a dismissive gesture, the alpha signaled the end of their conversation. Immersed in thought, he initiated a mind link to his gamma. Vaughn, your presence is required. The swift knock was soon followed by the entry of a blue-haired man, who showed due respect before taking his seat. What can I assist you with, Alpha? He asked, sensing the weight of the alpha's concerns. Keep a constant eye on her. Everest Hills, Mall. Present. Amelia. No. I pushed the shimmering dress back to Nia. We were currently on the hunt for the perfect attire for Lyra's upcoming birthday gala in the Blood Moon domain. Admittedly, the idea of attending my first ball, with Atreus as my companion, was quite nerve-wracking. Nia, ever persistent, ushered me into a changing booth. She had already planned a salon visit for our complete makeover post-shopping. I sighed internally. This felt like the 1000th shop we had visited, and judging by Nia's reaction to the gold dress, it seemed we had found the one. And yes, she'd purchased multiple outfits and pairs of shoes for me already. This shopping spree was turning into an endless marathon. Slipping into the dress, it hugged my figure impeccably. The design was simple yet elegant with thin straps, a V-neck showcasing some cleavage and ending mid-thigh. It's stunning, Nia whispered, her eyes wide, staring at my reflection. The dress transformed me. I felt truly beautiful for the first time. The attire accentuated my curves and complemented my brown locks and hazel eyes. It would indeed match my true golden eye color perfectly. Chapter 20, Challenge, Mountview Heights, Mountview Academy. Several days prior, Amelia. An abrupt inhalation, a lingering, profound look. I was captured by the depth of his hazel eyes, as he gently relayed his name through sign language. His build seemed sturdier, hair trimmed flawlessly. It baffled me to see him here, especially when he had distinctly shared his ambition to journey solo as a free wolf. The fateful day we first crossed paths was tragically marked by his father's demise. Both were wanderers at heart, and his dad was taken by bandits. His mother belonged to a clan but perished during his birth. Had it not been for his father's presence, he wouldn't have weathered the years. This very legacy instilled in him a thirst to traverse the world, to grasp true autonomy. We drifted apart nearly 2 years back. Iris and I anchored ourselves here, while he ventured across diverse settlements and aligned himself with various clans throughout the regions. Although Jacob occasionally sent me messages, it's been about 6 weeks since his last correspondence. So, my countenance distorted in sheer astonishment as I recognized him, standing confidently before our peers. "Jacob," I murmured softly. He responded with a faint grin. Following the brief introduction from our teacher, he was directed to the seat next to the girl on my right, whom I believe is named Kailu. I leaned her way and lightly tapped her desk. "Kailu." Her gaze shifted toward me, eyebrows quirking in curiosity. "Yes. May I switch seats with you?" I inquired hopefully. "Of course, Amelia." With silent appreciation, I transitioned to her spot, gathering my belongings. As Jacob began to settle, I discreetly jotted a message on a torn slip, passing it under the radar. His wide-eyed expression indicated his surprise at finding me adjacent. "Why are you here?" From the corner of my eye, I saw him penning a swift response. His note read, "Received a note from the council about their regulations. Picked Mount View Heights since you're here." His roaming nature had drawn the council's attention. Jacob had made connections in several clans, so it was not shocking that they had registered him as an independent wolf. "Also, your birthday is approaching." I smirked, writing back, "Figured as much. Got a lodging sorted." "Always do. I'm at the block on Visionary Lane, 7th floor. Mine's nearby, on 3rd Mason Street." "Excellent. I'll pop in occasionally." The concluding bell sounded, causing an immediate swarm around Jacob. The majority were admiring girls. His attractiveness was undeniable. As they attempted to charm him, our eyes met. "See you tonight," I signaled, recalling our old sign language sessions, which made communication smoother than written notes. He acknowledged with a nod, then returned his attention to his admirers. Exiting swiftly, I recalled a commitment with Ms. Io. Upon reaching the gym, I quickly donned my workout gear, tying my hair back and stretching in anticipation of Ms. Io's arrival. Moments later, the gym doors swung open, revealing the flustered blonde instructor. "Sorry for the delay, had an issue with a student," she puffed, likely from rushing over. "No trouble, I just got here," I replied. She nodded and proceeded to change. Positioned at the starting mark, I inquired, "How many laps are we going for?" "Between 15 to 20, you decide." 20 it is. "Oh, this is great. I'll be able to see how great your stamina is. Mind you, I'm the best tracker of the Blood Moon territory, so I might go easy on you," Miss Io claimed. "That was kind of unfair for me since I'm up for any challenge." "Please don't go easy on me. I'm used to this. Besides, I'm up for any sort of challenge thrown in my way. It might benefit me in the future," I voiced out. Her golden eyes widened in surprise. It lasted for a while, and then the sides of her lips curved upwards into a big smile. "That's the spirit." I bent down on one knee and positioned myself. "May the fastest wolf win, Arin. On the count of 3. 1. I took a huge breath. 2. My legs ached restlessly. They are aching to be used. They want to run. I've always been running. 3. I exhaled and took a leap forward. I wasn't fast enough to be the one ahead. Miss Io was a few meters ahead of me. Her blonde curls were swaying side to side as she dashed through her lane. I wasn't using my entire speed at this time around because I knew I needed to keep up my pace. My muscles began to ache as both of us reached the 10th round. It was the ache that I was familiar with, and I embraced it fully. I could feel myself sweating, and before I knew it, my clothes were already dampened. I controlled my breathing and used the technique I've always had. I inhaled through my nose and exhaled through my mouth. The breathing pattern always helped me with my pace. "Are you okay back there?" Miss Io taunted me with a smirk plastered on her face as she slightly turned her head to the back. I didn't mind her since talking would only make me lose focus, and it would have taken a lot of my energy. 3 rounds left, Arin, she shouted. That was a disadvantage on her part, since it will take a lot of her energy. As I expected, she slowed down a bit, and she was roughly 2 meters away from me. On the second to the last round, I increased my pace. She didn't notice me at all since she was catching her breath from all the talking. By the time we passed through the starting point, I pushed myself and surged as fast I could. I took that opportunity to run past her. I heard a gasp. I was now ahead of her, and this time, she tried running as fast as she could, but to no avail. I was swift, and the agility I had was remarkable. In no time, I reached the finish line and continued running as I slowed down my pace this time. I jogged for a while and saw that Io was already catching her breath at the finish line. Her eyes stared right into me in shock, like she couldn't believe that I outran her. The moment I neared her, I could hear her mumbling a few words. How impossible, O moon goddess. I guess that was her way of saying she was incredibly impressed at my performance. I drank water and waited for both of us to catch our breaths. Impressive, Amelia. I wouldn't have expected anyone to outrun me, but I'm surprised that you did. Her face was slightly red, but her lips were curved into a smile. Where did you learn how to run like that? Let's just say, I've always been running, and I trained myself over the years. A glint of familiar was in her eyes, but as soon as I saw it, it vanished. We should do this from time to time. She clasped her hand around mine. No problem. I had a marvelous time with you, Miss Io. Just Io would be fine when we're alone, she expressed politely. All right, Io. Chapter 21. The Ball. Everest Heights, Amelia's living quarters. Now, staring into the mirror, I caught a glimpse of my hair cascading in waves, brushing slightly past my shoulders. These curls, borrowed from Nia's technique, straighteners and I were not the best of friends, and old-fashioned curlers seemed so much more forgiving. A few twists, a few hours of waiting, and a spritz of hairspray later, voila perfection. Tonight marked the grand ball, a nerve-wracking first for me. My life had mostly been spent eluding someone, a mysterious chase. Had Aunt Maeve still been here, she'd have imparted her wisdom about navigating these teenage milestones. Her absence had left me endlessly running, with no clarity about my future. Would my life be this relentless chase, or would there be a respite, a life I could cherish? Emotions churned within, not merely nerves, but a whirlpool of anxiety and apprehension. Could the ball turn into a disaster? Could I become a laughingstock? Or worse, feel utterly isolated? Calm down, Amelia. Breathe. The makeup set on my dresser was Nia's kind offering, just like the gorgeous dress she picked out for me. I started with the basics, foundation and blush, subtle shades for my eyes and cheeks, followed colors that complemented both my golden dress and my unique brown and gold eyes. The finishing touch, the dress, sliding into it. I marveled at its perfect fit. Every curve was flattered. This dress was mine, elegance personified. Then came the shoes heels that gave me a much-needed height boost of 3 inches, a newfound confidence. A knock echoed. Amelia. Casper's outside. My heart skipped. Hold on, Iris. My reflection showcased brown eyes courtesy of my contacts. Yet, if one looked closely, gold streaks darted through, resembling miniature lightning strikes. Memories of Aunt Maeve's comforting smile flitted through. If you were here, Aunt Maeve, you'd guide us, I murmured. Entering the lounge, I found Iris and Lily, but Casper was conspicuously absent. Casper, I inquired. Iris, munching on her snack, pointed outside. He chose to wait outside for you. Informing Lily of my late return, I expressed my gratitude and told her to feel at home. After a loving farewell to Iris, I stepped out. Casper was unmistakable in his sleek gray suit. Our eyes met, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. His appreciation was evident, and it made me smile. Breathtaking, he managed to say. Drawing closer, my hands found their way to his chest, and eventually his neck. You're quite a sight yourself, I whispered. Our gaze locked, and the world faded away. But the night wasn't about just us. We had a birthday party to attend. We needed to pull ourselves together, though it wasn't easy. That encounter was intense. Delightful, he added with a wink, and just like that, the evening began with a hint of promise and blush. Like that, Chapter 22, The Ball Part 2, Blood Moon Dominion, Twilight Woods. Now, the journey took longer than I'd predicted. I observed countless trees as we journeyed through the primary pathway. This route was nestled amidst trees, and I believed the heart of the woods was merely a short distance away. Sounds echoed from the forest, wolves patrolling its breadth. The forest gave me a sense of déjà vu, though I shrugged it off. After all, I'd traversed many forests in my life while escaping. The vivid greens darkened, and twilight hues bathed the sky as dusk approached. As I was about to voice my thoughts, Atreus voiced his first. We're journeying through Twilight Woods deep within Blood Moon Dominion. Our path is heavily watched by border sentries. Under the vigilant eyes of the Chief Alpha and Principal Luna, these lands are fiercely protected. And since that event, well, I can sense patrol routes every 500 meters. Their vigilance has increased. I responded with a nod, recognizing the gravity of these wolves' roles struck a chord within me. Atreus's keen observations revealed that his pack was strategic, indicating their strength in warfare. I sat up straighter, comforted by the plush car seat. Atreus accompanied me in the back while his chauffeur drove us. I noted cars shadowing us, maintaining distance. Likely Atreus's pack, possibly Jax and Vaughn among them. Gazing out, I hoped the window would conceal my reddened cheeks. The passionate kiss we'd shared earlier still left me off balance. It also provided a momentary distraction, allowing me to collect my thoughts. Today was significant, my birthday. As midnight approached, I would turn 17, a significant age among wolves when one finds their mate. A daunting thought, considering his pursuit of Lucy and me. Involving others was the last thing I wanted. I exhaled deeply, his fingers intertwined with mine. Yet he averted his gaze. Perhaps he sensed my rising anxiety. A subtle grin tugged at his lips. I blinked and refocused as we neared Blood Moon's heartland. Anxiety bubbled within, making my wolf counterpart grow uneasy. I pushed her down, suppressing the discomfort. Holding Atreus's hand firmly, his voice broke my trance. Amelia. Our eyes met. Yes, I replied softly, releasing his hand. We've arrived. Do you want a direct drop-off or should we park elsewhere? He noted my apprehension, hard to miss given my grip. This was, after all, my inaugural ball. The sprawling walls of Blood Moon's south wing loomed, a venue for grand events. My thoughts raced. What role did Lyra hold here? This annual festivity in his honor must attract many. Just how many packs were attending? The main entrance is fine. Time to face new experiences, I replied, trying to sound assured. The car halted at the red carpet's beginning, leading to the entrance. Flashes from photographers lit the area as attendees made their grand entries. Atreus exited swiftly, holding the door for me. Extending his hand, Miss Lake, greeting him with a radiant smile. The world brightened as I stepped out. An unfamiliar yet powerful sensation coursed through me. Taking a moment, I tried to discern the unique sense around me. I then looped my arm through Atreus's, proceeding to the entrance. Whispers filled the air. Who is that? A mystery wolf. She's breathtaking. The last comment made me smirk while Atreus pulled me a tad closer. We were met by a hostess, who checked our names against her list and handed us masks. Unexpectedly, it was a masquerade ball. Our black masks paired seamlessly with our attire. Upon entering the grand hall, I was awestruck. Majestic chandeliers hung from the towering ceiling, bathing the room in a golden hue. Guests in varied attires conversed animatedly. Principal Luna Ra truly surpassed expectations, Atreus murmured. I spotted Jax and Vaughn, accompanied by ladies. I greeted them warmly, partaking in their lively discussion. As the conversation flowed, a distant call rang out. Amelia, look out, was the next cry. Before I could react, a body crashed into mine. Anakin's familiar golden hair was unmistakable. Anakin grinned. I have impeccable fashion sense. Beside him, Casper, sporting a polished ensemble, interjected, reminding Anakin of his duties. Their conversation hinted at a significant reveal, but it was interrupted by the event's official host. His captivating eyes mesmerized the attendees, drawing everyone into the evening's festivities. Chapter 23, Mates, Blood Moon Territory, South Wing, present. Good evening, everyone. Haunted here. I'm thrilled to see familiar faces and in awe of the newcomers joining us this year. Our birthday boy must be expanding his circle as he ages. Laughter filled the room at his remark. As we're all aware, our bright prince is about to reach that special age we've all anticipated. Tonight, we dedicate our love and affection to him. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce you to the Addertons. Lead Luna Euphoria Livingston will be kicking off tonight's ceremony. Let's give her a warm welcome, folks. I then noticed a group standing slightly behind the host, 5 men and 3 women in total. A recognizable red-haired woman moved forward, embracing the host with a radiant grin. She greeted everyone, then accepted the microphone. To be honest, I wasn't prepared for this. Nobody told me I'd be speaking tonight. She cast a playful yet accusing glance at a dark-haired man behind her, who responded with a confident, knowing smile. Today marks the birth of my twins, my precious firstborns. The joy I felt when I found out I was pregnant was unparalleled. Even though my pregnancy was fraught with worries about my fragile health, I just kept praying to the moon goddess, who blessed me with 2 incredible children. She paused, her gaze drifting over the audience. Our eyes met, but she seemed distant. That's when it hit me, the woman I'd bumped into earlier was the lead Luna. Fate is unpredictable. We all mourn the loss of my darling daughter, now in the hands of the moon goddess. She turned and beckoned to a young man named Helios, who had an expression of mixed joy and sorrow. Happy 17th birthday, my son. My heart overflows with love for you, and to my daughter, wherever you are, we hope you find your way back to us. Always be safe. Our entire community believes in you. With that, everyone solemnly pounded their chests twice. Emotions ran high, with many eyes glistening. She concluded, "That's all from me. I trust you'll enjoy the festivities. Welcome to the Blood Moon territory on this wonderful evening." Applause followed her heartfelt speech. The mic was then passed to Helios. "Hi everyone. Happy birthday." The crowd cheered. He chuckled, slightly embarrassed. "Thanks, Mom, for those words. We'll always remember my sister. Love you sis, wherever you are. Please return before I get saddled with all these tedious duties. Parties are my jam." The crowd laughed in response. "Thanks to all for being here tonight. Food's ready for you." Soon, my friends and I were by the bar, grabbing drinks and trying to process everything. Helios and Nia, they were the children of the Alpha and Luna. Observing the others, I deduced that Zara and Jax were probably next in line. Casper seemed to be in training too. As the night unfolded, we ate, drank, and had lively conversations. Nia and Helios were the last to join us. To my surprise, they were revered as werewolf royalty. When I mentioned it, they modestly downplayed the title. In the midst of it all, Jax played with his food, creating what he termed culinary art. He also crafted drinks, focusing on achieving the perfect color. Of course, the drinks were alcoholic. Everything was proceeding smoothly. My boyfriend Atreus was by my side, and as the night wore on, I grew weary. I laid my head on his shoulder, and he pulled me closer. "Exhausted," he murmured. "Quite," I whispered. After a short rest, I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way out, I overheard a heart-wrenching conversation. A woman inconsolable with grief over her lost daughter was being comforted by a man who promised the daughter would return. Taking a moment to regain my composure, I headed back to the main event, but not before accidentally colliding with someone. "Watch out, young one," said the man, reaching out to help. I recognized him as the man who had stood beside Luna Euphoria earlier. He had the same deep golden eyes as Iris and me. I was in a daze, trying to fathom the resemblance. "My apologies, I wasn't paying attention," I stammered. "It's all right," he responded, extending a hand to help me up. "I'm John." I gulped, recollecting the stories from Aunt Neve. "Do you possibly know?" Before I could finish, a familiar scent overpowered my senses. I found myself irresistibly drawn towards it. Atreus. And as I rushed to him, it was evident he felt the same pull. Both of us, unable to resist, crashed into each other in front of everyone. As we locked eyes, the world around us faded. In hushed tones filled with wonder and realization, we both whispered, "Mate." Chapter 24, Father. Blood Moon Realm, Bloodwood Forest. A dozen years prior. "Race me, Papa, can't catch me." My laughter echoed through the woods. The palace was just ahead, and I knew Mama had readied our special treat. My stomach growled thinking about lunch, but for now, I sped ahead, hearing Papa's voice close behind. "Sarah, slow down." Clearly, I was a handful, but that was the plan, to keep everyone off guard. I halted, taking a moment to gaze at the massive palace walls. They always took my breath away. Absorbed in the view, I barely noticed Papa's voice growing louder. Honestly, he was not quick on his feet. Spotting him a short distance away, a wide grin spread across my face. "You can't escape me," I playfully taunted, darting through the palace's maze-like pathways. "This was just a little game to buy some time." "How did you get so speedy so young?" I heard Papa muse to himself. His mock frustration made me giggle. Looking at Papa's face, our similarities were striking. My twin brother did share our brown hair and golden eyes, but his features were a blend, somewhat reminiscent of our grandfather. Mama always said Papa was a mix of both grandparents. As for our younger sister, she was Mama's spitting image. It's as if they were birthed from the same mold. I prided myself on my swiftness. Sure, sometimes Papa caught up, but I was confident that one day I'd outpace him entirely. Checking the time, I smiled. Everything was on track. "Quicken your steps, Papa," I called back. Obediently, he hastened. As I led him to the Grand Palace doors, he suddenly scooped me up. "Caught you, my little cub." His voice rang with triumph. Setting me down, he launched into a tickling frenzy. My giggles were uncontrollable. "No, Papa, please." Mercy. My laughter was contagious, and he laughed along. "You nearly wore me out, Sarah." His playful glare accompanied more relentless tickling. "Apologize and I might spare you." Through my teary giggles, I pushed his hands away. "But Papa, I can't." his brows furrowed. Why? Because I led you right where you needed to be. See, I beamed, revealing my plan. He was clearly taken aback. Before he could question further, I energetically nudged him through the grand doors. Surprise! The room erupted. His startled face was worth all the trouble. Happy birthday, mighty Alpha. Stumbling over words, Papa was overwhelmed. Clasping his hand, I stood proudly by his side. He means to say thanks. My cheeky interpretation elicited laughter. Shaking his head in amused exasperation, Papa mused, so this was your scheme. That's why I couldn't communicate mentally. His gaze settled on Mama, who was approaching with my siblings. Happy birthday, my love. Their affectionate kiss made me grimace, but their happiness was palpable. As festivities continued, I excitedly loaded my plate. So engrossed was I that I accidentally bumped into a lady. I'm truly sorry, I blurted out. Her striking green eyes met mine as she helped me up. You're okay, dear, she reassured with a chilly gaze and a strained smile. Someone called her to join a dance, but she demurred. I battle, not dance. Hearing this, I chimed in with unsolicited advice. Once you start, you won't want to quit. She sighed, considering my words. Eat up, young princess, before your feast gets cold. Later, amidst joy and dancing, Mama pulled me into her embrace. You made Papa's day, my sly fox. I beamed. Thanks, Mama. She tilted her head. For always filling our days with joy. Love you heaps. As we danced away, my heart was light. Sure, this happiness was eternal, but I was mistaken. Chapter 25. Revelations. Lunar Eclipse Estate, west quarter of the castle. Now, destined. The utterance of the word sent a chill through my very being, but simultaneously, a surge of dominance surged within as my wolf spoke it. Judging by Atreus's reaction, he felt its impact too, softening his gaze as it met mine. We were unmasked. I sat on the cold floor, clinging to him, my eyes exposed to his view. The once effective contacts couldn't hide the unique glow any longer. The faint whitish gray hue showcased the truth. I nearly wore brown-tinted lenses over my real eyes. People had gathered around us, though maintaining a respectful distance. When my wolf released a commanding growl, claiming her partner, a surprised gasp echoed. But my world had narrowed to just him. Atreus clung to me as if I were the world's most cherished treasure. Drawing me close, he inhaled deeply, intoxicated by my scent. I stayed still, feeling my wolf's fury subside, and the natural hue of my eyes return. He touched my face with a gentle tremble. We always knew, didn't we? His voice was barely above a whisper, yet the room caught every word. When his wolf withdrew, I sensed it lurking, hesitant to release me. Yes, my response was hushed as I rose, aiding him to stand. The crowd began to disperse, granting us solitude. Facing one another, we tried to steady our breathing. An electrifying connection surged as our hands met. Amelia, I saw your ear. My hand silenced him. Some truths weren't for public ears. Not now, I murmured. But you need to understand. You are. I silenced him with a kiss. The world faded as he drew me closer, the intensity overwhelming. We could have lost ourselves, but there was a time for everything. Let's leave it for now, Atreus. His wolf's protective growl echoed my sentiments. I had my suspicions, he breathed, leaving me puzzled. Then Nia approached, breaking our trance. Amelia, this was unforeseen. She embraced us both warmly. I'm thrilled you two found each other. I'm a tad envious. I wish my fate was as clear. Wait, it's the day you were. Birthday twin. It's your day too. I was humorously tackled by none other than the celebrant, earning Atreus's protective growl. He assisted me up, pulling me protectively close. Whoa, big guy. She's all yours. Not my type. I responded with an amused eye roll. Why didn't you tell us? Caught off guard, I struggled to respond. Well, I managed a smile. A deep voice beckoned from behind. Let's move this discussion elsewhere. Family meeting first, council later. Addressing his mate, he added, inform them, love. Turning to me, he continued, bring Atreus. John. Something about him felt known. Perhaps Aunt Meve had mentioned him. Answers seemed close. We trailed him to an expansive room above. It resembled a grand study. Many familiar faces were present. Atreus, John, Euphoria, Nia, Helios, Anakin, Casper, an older lady, and two strangers. The last two likely held significant ranks. A looming discussion about me, possibly leading to my delivery to the Rogue King, left me anxious, but instincts hinted at more. A palpable tension filled the room. My eyes scanned the very brown shades of the decor, wooden furniture, and a rich red carpet. The room exuded warmth, if not for the uneasy silence. Breaking it, I questioned, why am I here? Am I in any danger? Silence. Finally, the lead Luna began, No, sweetie, you aren't. John interrupted. I want to test a theory. I shot him a quizzical look, comforted by Atreus's touch. An electrifying connection eased my nerves. We deserved some quality time, considering the circumstances. John approached. I held my ground, observing his every move. You're safe here, he assured me in a unique dialect, heavy with meaning. Grateful for the clarity, I inquired, why am I here? Little wolf, there are things you need to understand. Like what? Who has been taking care of you? Just me. Well, Iris's mother, Neve, did until her death. He nodded thoughtfully. Who was Neve? I squinted, puzzled. Golden-eyed Neve, just like yours? Shock registered in his eyes. And yours too. I tensed. Yes, so. Your early life memories. Lost for words. I recalled a childhood accident. So, memory loss. I nodded. Yes. Can you shift? What does that matter? I retorted, frustrated, hands flailing. Everyone stared, wide-eyed. John's expression softened. It's integral to your identity, dear. What do you mean? Answer first. Exasperated. I snapped. Yes, I can. Why do you care? John moved closer. Show me your wolf. His voice was infused with power. If not for my defiant wolf, I'd have complied. The audacity irked her. I felt her emerging. As she took over, her dual-toned eyes matched John's. A growl warned of her dominance. You can't command me, she retorted. I sensed fear in the room, while John appeared amused. I wasn't trying to, young one. Take your time to grasp everything. A gentle voice intervened. The lead Luna looked at me. You should know, your language, your shifting is rare. Only the royals possess such traits. A royal disappeared years ago, an heiress with dual-toned wolf eyes, like yours. Blinking away the shock, I managed. Are you saying? The elder nodded, confirming. You, Seraphina Sarah Mevrin Livingston Atherton, are the true heiress of the werewolves.